would you like to give a little introduction before we shift over to? We have some cool screens. We're gonna do some fancy stuff today. We're getting all big, um, big fancy on the banner and backbone side. Um,
Yeah, screen
so
sharing
good
and
morning,
everything.
Melissa.
Good morning. I am so excited to be working on this project. I am Melissa Corrigan from Counter Story Media, and um, I've decided to take this on as a project of my own in my own personal community. And I have gone out and initiated a couple of interest meetings for the Anti-Fascist Book Club in our local community. So we are going to have two face-to-face clubs here in Hampton Roads, Virginia. If you are in this area, just look us up. I'm sure get in touch with me and I'll let you know where we're going to be. So having a virtual version of this, I know a whole lot of my followers, when I posted about when I would have my interest meetings for our local clubs, were like, oh man, I don't live there. So I am going to direct them all to join the virtual club so that we can not only go through the book club together, but also you can learn how to start a book club in your area as well, because we are hoping to empower you to start a club in your area.
Fantastic, yeah. And that's the thing is empowerment and action and engagement. We're at the point where if you don't want to be engaged, I don't know what else to do for you.
Yep.
And this is a simple way to do it because your biggest anti-fascists in your area tend to be librarians because they're the keepers of knowledge and
Yes.
information. Um, and they will protect that knowledge and information just like dragons.
Yes.
They will guard their hoard well. Um, and they encourage folks, and that's why. Uh, so this all is coming about. I'm going to switch to our next screen, which don't worry, you'll still see the both of us. Um, but it is we're going to be bringing up the Veterans Fighting Fascism webpage. And their anti-fascist book club that Chris Goldsmith has put together, a good friend of the show, friend of the network, fellow veteran, and Nazi hunter. Um, and so he's helped provide us with some really good tooling um, and ways to engage with each other. And one of those is what we're doing today. It's the Veterans Fighting Fascism Anti-Fascist Book Club. Um, and so we wanted to use some of the time this morning. We're not going to be reading too much today in terms of books, but we will give our book list for this week's first book. We'll be coming back every Friday, this time, 12:30 Eastern time, for about an hour, almost like a little book report, a little book club. We're going to talk about it together, get folks in the chat to engage and see what, and that you've, this is a, um, this is a participation event that we want to encourage. Is obviously we can't see all of you and know if you've read the books or not, but we'll know when you ask questions, have you read the book, do you know the content, and that's what we encourage. We want everyone to be able to come and ask questions with us. That's why we're doing it through Restream like this, where we've got my platform, Melissa's, Banner and Backbones. When we get some of our other co-hosts, we're going to have more of them in here as well. Hopefully, we can get some guests in, like Chris himself, at points to discuss stuff. But this is more about the actual books, um, and so let's get into a little of what the book club is and what it isn't. Um, and Melissa, do you mind um, just giving a little overview from what you have experienced thus far without us having to read too much on the page yet? Is what have you experienced so far from working to start your own in persons of what it is versus what it isn't? So at this point.
Sure. Yeah. So, like I said, I'm in Hampton Roads, which we are in a purpley state. Our governor is Republican, and we do have quite a bit of Republican community here. So, one of the first challenges I had to overcome when I was just putting up paper flyers for this project was explaining to business owners who were a little nervous having a flyer that said anti-fascist in their window that we were in no way affiliated with Antifa. There's a place for Antifa, and that's fine, but we are in no way affiliated with them. Veterans Fighting Fascism is, like Banner and Backbone, a nonviolent organization. So that was number one, clearing up a little bit of the verbiage. And because of that, I tweaked the name of our local group just a little bit to Hampton Roads Veterans Against Fascism. Took that fight word out of there and made it just a little bit softer, to make it more palatable to people in, like I said, a purpley area. So what I did was set up a couple of different interest meetings, one in the morning at a local coffee shop and one in the evening. And the morning group, and I definitely had like an idea of who may be interested in this and come out, and I thought it may be college students, veterans who were more left leaning, community activists, advocates, stuff like that. And in my morning meeting, that is for the most part what ended up happening. Whoever RSVP'd, only one person RSVP'd to the online meeting. So it would have been easy in that moment for me to cancel and just say, you know what, I'm not, because I had to drive through a tunnel to get there and pay a toll. But I figured, you know what, I'm going to go and just hold a space there. So I went and grabbed a table at the coffee shop and set up one of my little paper flyers on the corner of the table and just sort of started doing my own work. And three different people came up. I sat there for a couple hours, and three different people came up, took the flyer, got information. They've reached out to me since then. So I would encourage anyone who's looking to step out in this way and maybe start a book club in your area, to not give up if you don't get a lot of initial interest, especially online. People will, click yes to RSVP online to a zillion things with no intention of really going. So you have that. So I just encourage anybody that's going to start a book club, first of all, yes, I did mine on Meetup, have an online RSVP somewhere, but also don't put a whole ton of stock into it and just go ahead and show up. And when you show up in that space and you just have some little marker indicator handwritten sign, you're more than likely going to get people that just walk up and ask you what you're doing out of curiosity, and you can start conversations in that way. And again, I had to clarify the messaging. We're not related to Antifa, we're not associated with that at all. But something I really did not anticipate, and this has caused me and my husband to really think about the ways we're going to manage the evening book club. And
Yeah.
I'm going to be very, very cautious with the way I am handling talking about this. There were some people that came out for the evening book club that we did not anticipate at all, this demographic coming, and it wasn't anything bad. I was kind of
Yeah.
scared I'd get MAGA people showing up, and it's not that. Um, but they are people that really, really need this information and want to be a part of it. We definitely clarified that they want to be a part of it, but they are in a pretty precarious situation for their own security to be affiliated with this. So it's kind
Yeah.
of interesting. I am simultaneously running two book clubs, and one is completely open. It's going to be in a public library during the day. Everybody's invited, totally open. And the other, we are really working on ways to establish a secure location and secure communication, because these are people who literally have been informed their phones are being tracked, for example. So we're really working hard on developing a safe space where these people can come and learn this information and educate themselves while obviously maintaining their personal safety. So as you can see, just from my little two examples, this book club is gonna look different in different spaces for different communities. And then our virtual version is obviously going to be even a different
Yep.
iteration of it. So I guess the first thing I want to get out of the gate is that this isn't very strict. It's not very rigid, and it's definitely going to be something that you can customize to your community.
Yeah. Yeah. And the I like that you said I appreciate that you're doing two groups and that you are so willing to work with the folks who are there and who need it and really want it. And that's part of all of this is I'm going to work to start my own, also in the Bentonville area of Arkansas. So any of my Arkansas friends, who I know I have a couple in the chat with me in my side of the stream. I've got all three of our streams open, so I'm taking a look at everybody's chat. So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. I'm monitoring all the chats that we've got open. We got over 100 people here right now, which is that's incredible, y'all. Because if each one of you decided you wanted to go out and do your own anti-fascist book club after this, or even got the idea and talked about it with some friends, if if each one of you talks to one person, that's 200 new people. That's 200 people that could be involved, and only 100 of us did anything. And it's super easy. It's free, but it's also one of those you got to be safe about it, especially right now. And I think it's really smart that Melissa, you're doing some really safe things for your second group, um, because things are going to get more extreme quickly,
Yeah.
unfortunately, where we are. And that's part of why we're doing the veterans fighting, working through the Veterans Fighting Fascism webpage and through their anti fascist book club. Because if we can get this information and learn it quickly, also, you have knowledge, and
And
can spread
knowledge is
that
power.
knowledge is power.
Right.
And that's why, just like everything, none of our content is paywalled. Like none of this is paywalled. None of this will ever be paywalled. Also, it's not our book club. We're starting a book club from somebody else's idea, so we're not going to paywall their book club.
Hmm.
And the quicker and faster we can read and get new information out, the better. We're going to do one book a week right now, because that's too much if we try and do more. So let's get into the maybe a little bit of reading of what the anti-fascist book club is by their own standard and their own definition and what it's meant for. And Melissa's basically covered all of this already. um, is it's meant to be a community driven initiative. So the big thing here is our community driven initiative, which means not just out in the wild like we're doing online, but also then bringing it home and actually doing it in your community, because you stop fascism at the community level, not at the national level. Um, and so it's to educate, organize, and empower. Um, and those are really key right now, and that's a lot of what we try and do with Banner and Backbone, with our platforms in general, is educate, organize, and empower. So fits really well with our mission, just in general. Um,
Right.
and
And I wanted to add, and I'm going to shoot Chris a
yeah,
message later, and I hope he doesn't. I hope he doesn't mind that I've added a piece to his, because I have educate, organize, empower, but in there I have communicate, because we are having to learn, as I learned from that evening book club, we are having to learn entirely new modes of communication and how to effectively communicate messaging like this in an increasingly surveilled environment. So you
yeah,
want to be able to effectively communicate what you're doing in the book club to the community, and you want to be able to effectively communicate within the book club in a safe manner. So I will say that I have become intimately familiar with what a Faraday bag is. And if you don't know what a Faraday bag is, it is, well, if you've been to a Jack White show in the past 5 years, he gives you one. But you put your phone into it and it blocks all signal and it cannot listen to you. Um, so a little bit of the structure of our evening group, we are meeting in one location. We are all putting our phones in airplane mode in Faraday bags, and then we are moving to a separate secure location to actually have the meeting. So I would say that communicate is a very important additional piece to this, to learn how to communicate, like I said, with the community in a way that they don't think you're having some Antifa meeting, and to communicate amongst one another.
yeah. And one of the things too that Banner and Backbone is starting, and it's not public and it's not available for anyone at the moment, but we're starting to work on our communication channels for just not just for us, but for the community in general, so that people can talk and be able to get messaging across and hear things quickly in a safe way that is secure, that doesn't always leave you exposed. Because, like Melissa said, so information security is huge, and information tracking is even more prevalent than information security is. Um, and so I love that idea. And I mean, we've had Chris on for a couple of vet talks, and I think he would really find that a great little addition um, to this, as well as I think we could entice him to come to a show or two, to a book club
Oh,
with us,
absolutely.
and talk about it, because I know he's read every single one of the books on the list. He curated this list overall for anyone in the audience. Chris Goldsmith, friend of the show, Nazi hunter, host of the Find Out podcast, founder of Task Force Butler, Veterans Fighting Fascism. He does a lot. And so he curated this list of anti fascist books, or books about fascism and how we prevent it or fight back against it or push back against it and restore our systems,
And I
and
will
make
say, he's
better
done such a
systems.
good job. If you want to start a book club in your community, there is an entire guide, step by step, laid out how to start your own book club.
Yep.
And so I really appreciate, I've done book clubs before, and a lot of times you're just kind of on your own. And I really appreciate that he's got a really nice structured program. Well, it's military. We're military. We do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. It's
It's a
very
SOP.
army. Yeah, yeah, it's very keep it. It's the KISS methodology for at least
Yes.
the Army was keep it soldier simple. I'm assuming on the Navy it was keep it sailor simple. Um, it's just keep it stupid simple, which means keep it straightforward to the point. Don't use
Yes.
fluff words. Chris is very good about that. Like, it's an SOP, or a standard operating procedure
Hmm.
for those who don't know. Um, and it's just step by step how to do this bullet list, and his goal is so that he doesn't ever have to be involved, because it's a mission command driven structure, which is very army, which is very US military in general. It's how we are structured since World War II. Is everybody from the top down knows exactly what the mission is and where you are in the chain of command, and can take over leadership all the way down to the last person in line knows the mission. And that's how he's organized it, is every one of us can start this, and it doesn't rely on Melissa and I being there for you after, say, this session. Like, you could realistically after this go, and I'm going to set up some flyers, I'm going to go talk to my librarian, and I'm going to read this website and make sure I know what to do to set up my own club. And I would encourage everyone. um, so we're going to skip over just the first part of how to start your own, because we're starting it. Here we are. Hey,
Here
everybody.
we are.
Welcome to Banner and Backbone's official anti fascist book club. Um, we're going to, he does have to stay connected, at least for receiving newsletter updates, but I do like your update idea, at least on the mission of learning how to communicate effectively and safely.
Hmm.
Um, is let's get into our reading list. And we're going to read, or at least introduce, part one of the reading list, and which book we're going to. So Chris Goldsmith put together a curated list of books for us to be able to go through. And it helps to prepare for the challenge ahead. We may call it a book club. We're also including websites, podcasts, articles, and other essential anti fascist media. So, below in this list, and in the show notes for this, we'll obviously include all of the links to everything, as well as the link to the first one, which is going to be number one. And we're going to probably read as many, if not all of these, if we can. Um,
Hmm.
and number one is maybe the shortest of them. It is an SOP that Chris has put together on the comprehensive guide of Task Force Butler and what they're about, the historical and theoretical foundations of fascism, and providing a clear and actionable definition. If we know what fascism is and how to talk about it, then we can use the right words.
Right.
Um, so, what do you
Use
think
the
about
right
this
words
first one?
and identify the actions when they appear.
Yeah. Um, and so we're gonna keep we'll keep the episode for another probably 5 or 6 minutes before we go. So we're right about at the half-hour mark for today. Um, but the first book on our reading list, or the first one on our reading list, is going to be the Task Force Butler. What is fascism? And I've sent it to all three of the chat streams. Um, it is this, like I said, is more of an SOP and a guidebook, a quick read through pamphlet um, of what fascism is and can it happen here. The answer to that second question obviously is yes, it can happen here because we're experiencing it happen here right
Yeah,
now.
in real time.
um, yeah, so I just want to I'll scroll down so everyone can see. It's like the intro chapter to a longer text, like a longer textbook. This is going to give you the highlight and overview of various components within uh, what is fascism and can it happen here. Um, and I think everybody needs to read this, specifically now that we are in the youth indoctrination loyalty piece and the grievance end of fascism. And once we get into grievance, things start getting fast
Yeah.
and escalate. So I'm going to encourage everyone for our first week to read What is Fascism by Chris Goldsmith on Task Force Butler's webpage. We will make sure this is linked into the show notes so everyone has it. Maybe Melissa, I or both of us will write up almost like a short little book report about it so that we have
Oh,
stuff to talk
absolutely.
about.
Yeah.
Um, you all do not need to do that, but if you want to for yourselves, for if you want to start your own groups, this is a great way to start. So, Melissa, I'll hand it over to you for a couple minutes and get your thoughts.
All right. I definitely want to look for a little further down the book list when we start getting into actual physical copies of books. If you don't yet have this little handy dandy, you should. You should have had it yesterday. Um, so if you're going to pick this up, try bookstore.org, try going into your local bookstore. We want to try to keep money out of Bezos' pocket if any way possible. This is a quick, easy read at first glance. Once you kind of start getting into it and really breaking it down, it can get a little scary, especially considering where we are now. But there's so much solid, great information in here, and it's super easy to read. He writes in a very clear and easy to understand way. He is an academic professor, Timothy Snyder, but he does not write in that way for this little book. It is very clear, very straightforward, very easy reading. You just have to wrap your brain around where we are. And I think this is a great book to help you walk through that in a way that's not too scary. Too scary. He does
Yep.
keep it very down to earth. But go on now. I've looked up, let's see, Strongman's on sale right now, actually on bookstore.org. So just try to pick up your book and try to check your local library. My local library did not have a copy of Strongman, but once I submitted an inquiry on the website, and they're going to go ahead and order some when they place their next order for new books, so that we will have it in our public library. Like Nick said, librarians are.
I submitted an
If
inquiry
you
on the
don't
web.
understand this yet, librarians are the coolest people, and they are uh, absolutely anti-fascist in cardigans. They're amazing. I have a librarian that I work with in outside Chicago who has been distributing my one-page pamphlets, and he works at the library, and you would never guess that he's distributing these little pamphlets. So librarians are going to be a good friend to you. So go to your local libraries. Number one, you can reserve rooms. I am in a library room right now. Almost every single library, anybody who has a library card can reserve a room for free. And a lot of these libraries are really underutilized places, so there's not much competition to get those rooms. so, so if you're looking for a place to hold your book study, a public library is an excellent, excellent place. Also, as an aside, I just want to encourage everyone to go get a library card from your local public library. Those numbers help keep them getting funding coming in, and since their funding is being drastically threatened, we want to make sure that we show the community, the local government, that these are utilized spaces, they are important spaces, and we do need them. So go get a local library card. And if you're comfortable now, my book club wants to my morning book club prefers a coffee shop environment, so they want to be able to have their drinks and stuff. But yeah, so actually getting your hands on the physical copies of the book is number one, and asking your local library to order those books, and just put it on their radar if they don't already have those books already. So that's probably for today. Just going over the familiarizing yourself with the website would help, and going ahead and getting your order in for those books.
Yeah. So what I would recommend then too for everyone is, like Melissa just said, get your order in for On Tyranny. Um, and that way we can have, for next week will be What is Fascism, which is our comprehensive guide from Task Force Butler. And maybe we introduce the and do the Together You Can Redeem the Soul of Our Nation, do both of the first ones since they're shorter.
Right.
Um, and um, and then on week 3 we get into On Tyranny.
Yep.
Um, unless we start moving faster and we have to start reading even faster, and if that's the case, we all got to figure out how to get extra hours in our day.
Right, exactly.
um, but this has been a great start, I think. Melissa, thank you so much. um, and I look forward to seeing you again next Friday, as well as everyone else.
Absolutely.
Almost, we have almost 150, if not a little bit over, people between our 3 streams. So thank you everyone for joining us. I'm Nick Parrow. This is my good friend Melissa Corrigan, and we're on Banner and Backbone at our first virtual anti-fascist book club. Um,
All
so
right.
I I appreciate all of you. And I look forward to seeing everyone next week. Melissa, you can stay on if you want for a second as we end the stream. Um, but if not, I will see you later too. Thanks, everyone. Hello, good morning, everyone. As we start to come on in, it is Banner and Backbone with the Anti-Fascist Book Club. I am Nick Parrow. I'm joined by my friends and colleagues here at Banner and Backbone, Melissa Corrigan and Shane Urich. And we are joined today by a special guest and colleague and friend at this point who has been putting in more work than most, and resident Nazi hunter, host of the Find Out podcast, Veterans Fighting Fascism, Task Force Butler, a laundry list of amazing things. Chris Goldsmith, welcome.
Thank you, Nick. It's great to be here.
Glad you're joining us. And do you mind introducing yourself a little bit to everyone while I begin pulling up the today's book, and we'll begin going over and talking about things?
Yeah, absolutely. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Chris Goldsmith. As Nick said, founder of Task Force Butler Institute and Veterans Fighting Fascism. Task Force Butler Institute is a 501c3 nonprofit that trains veterans in open source intelligence research so that we can hold domestic extremists accountable in a court of law. Veterans Fighting Fascism, dual branded, looks very similar, is a bit different. It's more about public education. And the big project of Veterans Fighting Fascism is what we're here to talk about today, the Anti-Fascist Book Club. The goal is not simply to learn about the history of fascism, because the history of fascism is a history of fascism failing and democracy winning. Might take some time, but democracy wins. But also a way to build community, both online and in the real world, because the way that you need to combat fascism is where it's growing in your own backyard, because that's where you can make a difference no matter where in the United States you are.
Thank you. Well, and this one is a really timely one too, especially this first book that's on the list. So for those of you who were not here last week, this is our second episode of the book club. Last week we did a short one. Melissa and I introduced what it was, what we're doing here, what it's not. But the big thing that it is that we're building community and teaching everybody else here that you all can start your own anti-fascist book clubs too. And now may be the best fucking time to start doing it. Like if you haven't already, now would be the time. And I'm looking so far at a couple of the chats. We've got over 100 people on just 3 of the chats. I'm still aggregating everybody together on my screen so I can see and try and stay up if people have questions. But before I do any more of that, Melissa, Shane, do you guys have any questions or comments before we get going? And while I start pulling up the screen for our first book, which is What is Fascism?
No, I'm very excited to be here. I feel like I look like a bag of drowned rats. I got in from DC at like 11 last night. Wonderful to be in DC. Absolutely, the energy, while grim in some ways, was pretty electric in other ways. So,
yeah, I'm excited to be here. I'm unique. I'm having a week where I'm able to kind of hop in on some more of these shows because you guys on Banner and Backbone know that I'm kind of a rarity these days. I'm trying to find a way to get my way on there, but I'm excited to be part of this. I think that this idea of an anti-fascist book club, or in general, it makes us all Antifa, right? So and you form your own Antifa club in your community, because that's what it's all about. And the best way to do that is by starting a dialogue. Like those of you guys who know where I come from, know my background, that's what the Firebrand Project's all about. It's about a dialogue. So fighting fascism starts with changing the national dialogue. And that's really, I think, something that we can demonstrate here by going through this this reading we've got today. And I'm stoked to be here and looking forward to it.
Awesome. Thanks. Well, let's get into it. So our first reading was What is Fascism? And Can It Happen Here? The title is a little rhetorical at this point.
Yeah, this was posted 2 years ago. So there have been a lot of people who get mad at me for for talking shit about fascists, and they're like, "Stop being mean to our president." And it's like, I wrote all of this well before he was in office, and
Before the fall.
for a very long time.
Yeah.
So if you are mistaking me as talking about Donald Trump, that's on you.
You're
Yeah.
condemning yourself by stating that, you know, you're talking the president. You're calling him a fascist. I'm shitting on fascists.
Yeah, it doesn't say anything about Donald Trump here.
Yeah,
Like,
no
doesn't
name
say his
drop.
name once.
No. And so I was listening to it again this morning because I figured it's probably important to understand how it parallels, because this one specifically parallels exactly what's going on in terms of talking about the rise of fascism and how it consolidates power in the beginning. And that sort of Reichstadt fire moment, and just we're there. We had Charlie Kirk assassinated, and since that moment, it has been an all-out fascist assault on the First Amendment. Could you talk a little bit about like your thoughts on how that parallels with what you wrote 2 years ago, and how you feel now with events?
Yeah, so we came up with the "What is Fascism" page here as kind of a collaborative effort with some historians on our team at Task Force Butler Institute. Fascism is a word that gets thrown around a ton, and sometimes it seems to be devalued because it's been used flippantly in the past. So that has given people the impression when they hear it today that those using it are using it flippantly, or using it almost like a slur to describe Donald Trump and what's going on. What we are hoping to do is help folks who did not study this part of political science or this part of history, which I never did until I went to college, in my late 20s. We're hoping to help people understand how to recognize fascism. So there are other political terms like democracy and republic and authoritarianism and totalitarianism that have clear defined definitions. But fascism is unique in the way because it was originally a party. It was a party in Italy under Mussolini, and that party's ideals, which we categorize here, became so synonymous with a new form of government and a new form of social politics that the term fascism started to apply to other places like Nazi Germany. So this is meant to be an intro. It's meant to be the too long didn't read version of a history book on fascism that was written by historians, to give you an entry into the problem as it exists and an introduction to how we can fight it.
I have a question for you, Chris, kind of in regards to that. And you were talking about how fascism has been used flippantly, like the term, and how in and of itself, right, it means different things. But would you say the reason as well that people have kind of minimized its impact is because it's almost been directly associated with the Holocaust? And this idea that the Holocaust will never happen again, which we obviously know is not true. But do you think that has a role in the minimization of the term as well?
Yeah, and I think I try to remember who I was during the Bush presidency, during the beginning of the global war, when I deployed, or even before that. Think about like my favorite bands. I used to be into like punk and alternative, and I think about the lyrics of some of my favorite songs that were written way back then, and one, System of a Down. One of the easiest lyrics that I remember in my head is, "We all live in a fascist nation." And I think about what Serge Tankian must have been thinking of and his context of that moment, I think that song might have been written as early as like 2021 or 2023. I think that most people, historians, political science, and everyday Americans would not recognize the America that we lived in back then, comparative to today, as a fascist nation. Though I can understand why some people would feel that way, particularly in the post 9/11 era, when entire communities were deemed as suspicious or as potentially traitorous or as potentially terrorists.
Yeah.
If that is the context of the world that you live in, like we've been under fascism for a long time. If you grew up in Jim Crow America, if you grew up with your ancestors having been formerly enslaved, like, were we a fascist nation back then, before fascism was identified as by political scientists as a unique form of government? I don't know. But many of the same attributes that are written down here, which are kind of timeless, will, I think, help contextualize different people's experiences under even our American government.
Awesome.
So let's get into it a little bit too. So I think we've covered a pretty good prelude and sort of an intro, but also a coverage of what we will go over in all of here. So let's start with the first section, which is power and the fetishization of power, and the powerful image and the creation of powerful images. And just coming right off the top of my head, this reminds me of exactly what happened in Butler, Pennsylvania, with Donald Trump being shot at. A round was fired in his rough direction, and a very powerful image was created out of that, with blood streaking in the wrong direction.
I know.
That's just my opinion. Those aren't facts, but if you look at pictures,
flags is printed on what would otherwise be an American flag. So yeah,
it's a very powerful image, and they used it very powerfully. And they continue to, because they made simple slogans out of it. Fight, fight, fight. He did all that stupid marketing and grifting on colognes and shit like that. Like, to me, that harkens out very, very closely to what you're talking about throughout all of this.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
I think what I haven't looked at this in quite a while, and what deliberately jumps out is what has been put in bold, which again I did years ago, and it's striking to see those points highlighted. Ritualized showcases of military strength. Like, it feels like a long time ago. It was not a long time ago that Donald Trump threw himself a birthday parade in the style of Kim Jong-un.
Yes.
And not just that, I just got back from DC, and it's number one, it's alarming and very jarring at first to see armed patrols in your nation's capital. And what I told my husband was, the part that was more alarming to me was how quickly I became conditioned to it. And after just about a day, it was kind of like, oh, there's another couple of them. Oh, and they become part of the background. They become part of the scenery, and that's incredibly disturbing.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting too, because you do get desensitized, but also like you and me and Chris and Nick, we have the luxury of being desensitized because we are not a person that has to fear those guys, because if you are one of those groups of people that they're there to arrest for whatever reason, then you do fear them.
Mm-hmm.
I actually think that's a little bit
spirit of this kind of fascism that they're trying to institute. Go ahead, Nick.
Yeah. I also think it's a little the fascism they're instituting is true fear now. Like, we do have to, even as white folks, we found out again this week through Jimmy Kimmel that white doesn't mean right. Only a certain white means right. And we aren't that. We are not that certain white. Like, I can guarantee you, my family went into the last gas chambers. They would probably welcome us back in the new ones. And so I think we need to, like you said, Chris, fetishization of power. The bold points are always really important. And I'm glad you include bold like this. Something I like doing in like technical work and stuff when I was in software was using bold on a minimal scale for where it's just really hyper important, because then it draws the eye really quickly. We have our fetishization of power, our archetype of the cult of personality. And maybe we could talk on that a little bit and what we think the cult of personality is going to do now that Trump is on some of the last end of his years, and the groomed next king was just assassinated last week. Can you talk about what that might mean in terms of how that affects a cult of personality from your experience as someone who's done a lot of research into these groups?
Yeah. So this is a good thing for us to kind of game out right now, wondering who is going to inherit Charlie Kirk's power, because his wife, she's a woman. She's not going to. Fascists are driven towards a masculine figure. Now, Charlie Kirk, it's not nice to speak ill of the dead, but he wasn't necessarily that masculine, but he came with the aggression and the anger and the hatred that people associate with masculine personalities, if not in physical form. There is going to have to be another man who steps into that space. Now, his wife, for those who don't know, has been elected as CEO of Turning Point USA. I don't know if she's CEO of the entire conglomeration, the C3, C4, the LLCs, the PACs, and everything else, or if she's just a figurehead for raising nonprofit funds. I don't know that. But they will find another voice. We have seen Ben Shapiro, being put up on a pedestal by Ezra Klein at the New York Times. They had a discussion the other day about toning down the political rhetoric, which is, I just want to reiterate that Ezra Klein is a fucking moron, because he has no idea the damage that he's doing right now in platforming someone who is the gateway to neo-Nazism, as Ben Shapiro has been. So I don't know who is going to inherit it. We saw J.D. Vance do an audition. He hosted Charlie Kirk's show earlier this week from the White House, 2-hour episode, where they talked about retribution against the left, against Democrats, against they and them, because Republicans now love pronouns. We are seeing J.D. Vance try to inherit the microphone and the crown. And I know that a lot of people think that J.D. Vance doesn't have the personality that's going to draw in MAGA, but I think in the power vacuum that will exist when Donald Trump is no more, I think that J.D. Vance is well positioned to inherit the fascist movement in the United States.
I think, to your point, I think J.D. Vance is incredibly important. And I think that his role, he's a chameleon, right? He's always been a chameleon. Mm-hmm. And his job is to fill the gap, fill the void. And it's significant, right? Who did J.D. Vance took him back to the Capitol on Air Force Two? He had his hand on the coffin. He's making an emotional appeal to those young men that are the core foundation of that violent aspect of the MAGA base. And one of the things that me and Nick talk about is techno-fascism and his relationship to the money, and a lot of the inspiration that comes and is an important integral part of this movement that we're seeing to undermine our democracy. J.D. Vance is he's one of the opposable thumbs of Peter Thiel. It's him and Stephen Miller, right? So he's got two hands as he shapes his vision of destroying our democracy. And J.D. Vance is you know, the chameleon. He's the guy who's there to inherit the throne. He was like raised in the image of that's his job, right? Like you said, his job is to, you know, be charismatic and sound intelligent. And he's always taken kind of a back seat throughout the presidency. He's been on a lot of vacations. He's tried to avoid the more contentious decisions. And I think that's intentional. What do you think, Melissa?
Yeah, I agree. The chameleon thing is just perfect. I feel like he is wherever his puppet master needs him to be at any given point in time. And not just the presence. That man has quite a face on him in terms of when Trump will get on a tear suddenly. Suddenly JD is sort of over his shoulder looking very concerned. And I think they are priming this positioning of JD as a more sane, level-headed, not dementia-riddled individual who
Absolutely.
may not have that cult of personality, but I think what they're going to push is JD has this steadiness. You know, he never was on board with Trump's more extreme beliefs and actions and the words that he would say, because I've noticed that months ago JD was always there grinning, like right there over his shoulder, just cheesing, grinning. And recently there's been a lot more concern looks and actual physical distancing of himself from the president. So I think that they're going to use his lack of personality that would contribute to a cult of personality to sell a more reasoned and sensible type of individual.
Yeah. I think that a lot of folks don't recognize this cult of personality thing, and we'll talk more about this as an integral part of what it means to be an authoritarian. To be an authoritarianism, to be an authoritarian, you have to have an authoritarian personality. Someone like JD Vance, who is a talented chameleon, could embrace the authoritarian personality. He seems to be morally flexible enough to do that. He seems to be a good enough actor to do that. He is someone who is in every way an elitist in the same way that I am. He wrote a book about being raised in Appalachia, which he kind of wasn't. At least people from Appalachia say he's not. But he's an Ivy League educated veteran, the same way that I am. Difference is he went to law school too. And that guy, you know, I think can step into the shoes of Donald Trump in ways that people don't anticipate. Like Donald Trump has convinced the everyman that he is one of them, even though he's a fucking billionaire who inherited hundreds of millions of dollars and squandered multiple businesses, right? He was a fraud. He was a con man. JD Vance has all of the personality traits that would enable him to just simply walk right into that personality. Again, the chameleon thing, that is not something that came from the press. It's not something that came from pundits. It's a description that came from JD Vance's friends, people who went to school with him, people who served in the military with him, and have seen over time his personality completely change depending on having new motives, new objectives, and new goals.
Could you talk maybe a little bit about how that ties into maybe one of this idea of, say, a carefully curated propaganda campaign, and how Stephen Miller, those two are tied together, or how they are fighting possibly for or vying for the role as king. Can you talk a little bit about how that maybe is fracturing a curated media structure? Because they're not always on message together anymore, not like they used to be.
Yeah, I don't know that Stephen Miller is necessarily a player in this, because he does not have any of the skill set that JD Vance does. While he may be, frankly evil, racist piece of shit. And I never use the word evil to describe people. I don't believe in heaven or hell, right? Like, it's a unique.
Yeah.
He's a unique person. He does not have the personality that would allow him to be the front man. He is very effective in messaging to a Fox News audience. But because of the way he looks, the sound of his voice, the way that he moves his head when he talks, he's not a person who the average American looks at, listens to, and goes, I want to be like that guy. So I don't see Stephen Miller ever getting more powerful than his current position. And I think that if J.D. Vance inherits the throne, that Stephen Miller will just have to fall in line behind him.
I actually think I think Stephen Miller, to be honest, I think he's the most powerful person in the White House right now. Because if you look at his job, the job of the chief deputy of policy is to sculpt policy for the president. And we've seen Trump literally be like, what am I signing? Right. So you know how I said, they're the opposable thumbs, right? JD Vance is the face, and Stephen Miller is the actual hands that pen the executive orders. So just a fun, if you really want to insult Stephen Miller, because I want to insult him a little bit, look at a picture of Megamind and then look at Stephen Miller.
That's an insult to Megamind. Don't do that. Don't ruin a good movie. Don't ruin the best movie ever, aside from Shawshank Redemption, with Stephen Miller's image.
Sorry. I just was thinking it's just the forehead for me. It's like his whole head just seems to expand upwards. But I do agree that he's not personable at all, and like he's only good at messaging to that Fox audience. But I actually think that like if you look at I think JD Vance steps into the strongman position, and Stephen Miller continues to craft policy, and he does exactly what Trump. JD just does what Trump is doing, but he does it better. I mean, if you look, he's basically, I think they want him to step into the wartime president role, which gives him a easy strongman image, right? You see the provocations with Venezuela. And you see all this warmongering going on. I think that's probably the situation. And they can create a cult of personality around JD Vance as a strong wartime president.
Yeah, I agree. Like everything you just said, I agree with you.
Shane, that's not always a good thing when Chris agrees with you. He's not always the good news fairy. So
yeah, no, I'm the opposite. I was doing a show yesterday where people were asking me to like, what's coming next? We've reached the end of my war games. We've reached the end of my scenario planning. Like, yeah, beyond here, it only fucking gets like way worse.
I know. I know. So I walked my dogs this morning. I'm like, this is so nice. I don't have to look at the news yet, because I'm going to look at the news and I'm going to be like, fuck.
Yeah, sometimes it's good just to walk away for a little bit. Melissa, can you talk about, if you want to on here, the new idea you had for the A1C?
Yes, I'm going to be starting a new initiative. Part of my concern, I myself have been outright banned, shadow banned, or blocked from every other platform. I can't get an account on Facebook. Meta just got kicked off my local next door last week, and then Twitter about 4 days ago. So looking at how we can establish platforms, we're clearly going to have to go offshore. So I've done some research, and we're going to be establishing a virtual private server offshore, and it's in a nation that doesn't share information or extradite. So that's the first step, is establishing the platform. So I've named this the 1A Collective for First Amendment, obviously, and we're going to host content that is factual information for Americans to be able to see that. And the creators are whoever writes or creates content on that site is going to have a safe place that not only they can broadcast their message, but that they can store. One of my biggest things that I'm looking for is hefty storage options. So I can take my content that I have on Substack and just store it there in case Substack begins doing what the other platforms are doing. So this is a brand new initiative. I announced it this morning. And so I'm looking forward to building it out with all of the talented people on Substack. It is a collective. I do in no way have the capacity to manage a project like this completely alone. It will be a collective. When I was in DC, what struck me is the quiet resistance everywhere. Everywhere you looked, there were stickers, there were beside the cash register in small businesses, they are now selling On Tyranny next to the cash register. They're selling small bound copies of the Constitution. And then there's efforts like this happening on the ground. I got handed this flyer and I was so inspired that the people of DC are not being violent, they're not being loud, but they by no means are taking this lying down. They are establishing community networks that are off the main grid. You don't see any of this on social media. You're not seeing these movements on social media. You're seeing them in person on those community boards when you go into coffee shops and bookstores around DC. If you're looking, it's everywhere. And so I want to have a platform that is a virtual space, because not everybody can go to DC, that is a virtual space for safe storage and dissemination of content, and a place where Americans can go and see factual information. Another thing that I'm really passionate about on this site is we are going to be fact checking like crazy. So everything that gets published on this site will be fact checked.
That's awesome. My hat's off to you. I know how difficult it is to try to build and manage things overseas. Our research for Task Force Butler is like obviously very at risk, though. Frankly, if the government were to take our files and turn them into public record, like if we ever got sued, sure, okay, here's all these Nazis.
Right.
I don't care. Like I don't have any data that I want to hide. I'm just doing it, because I don't believe in extrajudicial punishment. I believe in justice, right?
Right.
But we have this entire like OSINT industry, as small as it is, have all been looking to overseas solutions, because we do see the great likelihood that this regime will start to crack down to force companies that like Substack, which is my second primary platform, to just make concessions. CBS, ABC, Disney, Harvard, Columbia, Yale, all of these mega corporate law firms, like they're all just conceding at this point. So Hamish McKenzie, who founded or was one of the founders of Substack, he thinks that he's built something that can't be taken from writers, and I hope he's right, but I don't see any evidence that he's got what it takes to prevent the Trump administration from forcing his hand on anything. My primary platform, where I've built my largest audience, is TikTok, and Democrats in office joined with Republicans to force the sale of TikTok over supposed national security concerns. They have forced TikTok to sell to people like Mark Andreessen, who is a Trump ally, who also, by the way, has a very big stake in Substack, who is, he's had text messages released that make it look like he is saying my people, as in white people, are pissed off about DEI, right? So if all of these platforms are controlled by a small number of oligarchs who are lining themselves up with Donald Trump, going overseas for digital services is really the only thing that we can do.
Yeah,
right.
I'm all
and
for
another
don't entertain
important
idiots.
Another
Sorry,
important facet of the 1A collective, because I put a post up a couple days ago. People like us are exhausted. We're exhausted. And I said, if even 5% of my followers were to begin themselves writing content, we would have a massive upswelling, and it becomes harder and harder to silence a growing group of individuals. So we're going to also be empowering people who have never written before or created content to go ahead and start doing that. Not only because if I get taken down, there needs to be someone to step up into my space, but additionally, we need to share this load. Instead of one of us writing 5 hefty, very research driven pieces, 5 people can each write one of those pieces. And we've got to be sharing this load. We've got to be empowering Americans who have never engaged in this type of activity, to empower them to step up and exercise their First Amendment rights. And by taking it offshore, I'm hoping to provide them a little bit of protection. And I did say, look, if you're going to step up and speak out, you have to understand that's an inherent risk, but we're going to try to mitigate that risk. If you want to write under a pen name on this offshore account, perhaps we can mitigate some of that risk. But in this tech-driven world, we all have to understand that there's a risk involved.
Mm-hmm.
So with that, knowing risk comes control, and we're at part of the control state. We're starting to see extraordinary levels of violence to quash opposition, starting with their own first. I think we can reasonably say that from the evidence that has been put out thus far, the assumption is that the individual who shot Charlie Kirk was a Groyper or associated with the Groyper movement, was black-pilled, as they say, a nihilist, primed for extraordinary levels of violence to quash the opposition, which in this case was a slightly dissenting voice from the right to possibly consolidate more power. We didn't really talk about who fills the vacuum too much, other than J.D. Vance, and that control, and who has power to incite extraordinary levels of violence. Can you talk about some of the other players like Nick Fuentes, or even what happened last week with Brian Kilmeade advocating for murdering homeless people, and then 2 homeless encampments were shot up with mass shootings, plus another homeless man was hung in Mississippi, and a black student was hung in Mississippi. I'm calling those lynchings because I don't know what else to call a black person hanging themselves from a tree with bruises and broken bones, and I don't know any black person historically who ever just hangs themselves publicly like that.
I just want to add a quick note to that, Nick. And one of the things is, any racially motivated crime, we should call a lynching. It doesn't matter. It doesn't just have to be someone hanging from a tree. A lot of these movements, because one of the things I'm writing right now in honor of Trey is I'm doing a deep dive into racial violence in the South, Mississippi. And but one of the things these groups advocate for is the shifting of the term lynching from specifically that instance to all racially motivated violence. And we all know how important language is in this environment. So I wanted to add that to your comment.
Yeah. So
and open for whoever. Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
So in the next section that's on screen right now, talking about one of the 4 core elements that we identify as the pillars of fascism, we have control. Again, wrote this years ago with my team. We did not write this in the context of the current regime in power. We have seen in independent media, including comedians, threatened, harassed, and pushed out of their work. After Charlie Kirk was murdered, while we have figures like Nick Fuentes and Laura Loomer, who are very closely aligned with Donald Trump, even if they don't get along all the time, those people were calling Charlie Kirk a fascist for a few months now, and they had been very aggressive in their campaign to try to harass Charlie Kirk, to push him further and further and further right. Now, Charlie Kirk didn't always advocate in favor of promoting the Great Replacement conspiracy theory, this anti-Jewish and racist conspiracy theory that posits that there's a secret Jewish cabal that is replacing white voters and white people throughout the Western world with brown or black people as a way of diluting white votes. That is what the Great Replacement conspiracy theory is. Charlie Kirk used to explicitly say that that was not a conspiracy theory that should be entertained. But after harassment, infiltration, and pressure coming from Nick Fuentes and his followers, these explicit, self-described white nationalists, fascists, and neo-Nazis, Charlie Kirk started to embrace that dangerous conspiracy theory, the same conspiracy theory that has led to mass shootings in Walmarts and malls and synagogues and churches, right? So when people came out and simply told the truth about Charlie Kirk in the days after his death, we saw a purge. MSNBC, Washington Post, a bunch of other outlets started letting columnists and journalists and political commentators go for saying truthful things about the man who died. They are sometimes doing it on their own. They're sometimes self-censoring because of this climate of fear and control that causes people to self-censor and protect themselves under fear that the fascist regime will come after them. But others, like these media conglomerates in ABC affiliates, are working to use their corporation to pressure ABC and Disney from below, and the FCC, part of the federal government, is threatening ABC, or was threatening ABC, saying that they have to fire Jimmy Kimmel. Or else they might lose their license to broadcast, which would absolutely destroy the company. The entire thing would be destroyed. And they folded. That is a clear First Amendment violation. The First Amendment is the thing that's not like the core thing about it, as anyone who's read a history book can tell you, is that it is to prevent compelled speech, or to prevent the government from coming and telling you what you can't say. And that is precisely what we've just seen happen. And I am not surprised to see a relative like meh after Jimmy Kimmel has been fired under those conditions, because we have been, as Melissa said before, so conditioned to the creeping authoritarianism that people aren't really reacting with the sense of urgency that I think they should be.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think we all agree on this call. That's why we're here.
I will say that the DC was very eye-opening, and there's a reason I keep going. I'm lucky that I live just a few hours away and I can go. And under this regime, I have made it a point to drive up as often as I can, because there's so much out there. Unfortunately, there are people on the left that are just as guilty of sensationalizing. You know, they'll get 14 different angles of a video of an ICE raid, and they'll, you know, sort of insinuate that that's 14 different raids. And so at this point, I am highly skeptical of most media at all. So I want to be able to go put myself there. And so I continue to drive up and put myself on the streets. The last time I was there was the end of June. And from then until now, I cannot tell you how much the deployment of the National Guard has changed the very feeling of DC. I did go live a couple days ago from the National Mall. I've never in my life, I've gone to DC all the time, and I've never in my life seen it that quiet. And they've removed all of the vendors that surround the National Mall that sell t-shirts, souvenirs, and food. You can't find a food cart or a water Is somebody selling water? Not so much as a hot dog cart. And this may seem, that's not too big a deal. Number one, I want to know where those people went. I want to know where those people went, number one. And number two, when you remove food and water from a central gathering place in the heart of your nation's capital, the place where people are told the National Mall exists for you to come file your grievances with your government. You can come protest, you can stand, you can march. It's right there in the heart of the government on the Capitol building's front lawn. And so to see it completely desolate, empty, and quiet, you could close your eyes and think you were out in the country somewhere. It was starkly alarming to me, starkly. So underneath that, as I drove around, I made sure to drive around at night. I drove around the U District at night. I drove around just about every neighborhood in DC at day and night because I wanted to see for myself. And what I see is a people who are pissed. They are pissed and they are organizing and they are doing it what I believe is the correct way. They're doing it quietly. They are not being open. You don't got people out here throwing Molotov cocktails anywhere. They are organizing quietly, effectively, and there is a groundswell of movement there. Aside from what the people of DC are doing, something that I found remarkable in this writing, you talk about the anti-intellectualism that emerges as a locus of control, which leads to the rise of propaganda. Something that I noticed that was absolutely incredible were the exhibits that the Smithsonian has put up. They are so fresh, they smell like paint and construction. And I'm telling you, I've gone to these Smithsonians, I've taken my kids, I went when I was little, I've taken my kids. Some of those exhibits haven't changed since I was a kid in the 80s and 90s. So there are fresh exhibits, and they are exhibits with a fucking point. They are making a statement. They are pulling out civil rights exhibits. They are pulling out exhibits that show the importance of free and fair elections. They are pulling out exhibits to demonstrate how nonviolent protest works. I mean, I got chills walking in some of these buildings and seeing brand new exhibits that was a big this to the guy in the White House. That you talk about museum curators and librarians are kicking ass right now and letting the American people know this is your history. This is what being American is. And that's not what's going on right now. So I was heartened that there is this propaganda campaign and this anti-intellectual campaign. But what also struck me about these Smithsonian exhibits is that they were very simple to understand. These were not high-level academia. This was a very easy to understand, plain language message. And I absolutely love that, because that is exactly what we need in a nation where the average reading level has gone down to 5th grade at this point. They met them on that 5th grade level with an undeniable message that what's happening right now is un-American, and here's the history of America, and here's what we need to do to fix that.
So I'm smiling because I'm thinking about some of the merch that Veterans Fighting Fascism has submitted to our artists or our artisans to start printing shirts, and included in them is Defend Your Local Library, and another one is Knowledge as a Weapon, because librarians have been key to maintaining history, to helping cultures, countries, and people maintain a connection to truth in the face of an authoritarian takeover. So I think that a lot of people stop having experiences at libraries after grade school. That is, I think, just part of who we are as Americans. I want to encourage folks who like the idea of creating an anti-fascist book club to consider using your local library as the physical venue for meeting. First of all, local libraries are local. There are many of them. it becomes extremely difficult to surveil these types of things, right? You might, and you might have a place that you can rent or that you can just simply reserve for free for even large groups to meet.
Right.
And these librarians, their goal is to educate you. They are teachers for people who are interested in lifelong learning, and they are a public good for as long as they last. And you should utilize them when you get the chance.
I think, too, one of the things that you can do, and in the spirit of libraries, but also something I've made a change in my life, I don't watch streaming services anymore. I read books. I like, and I'm just as guilty as everybody else. Like, we just binge watch shit and we like totally just brain rot. And it's a conscious decision you have to make to say, you know what, I'm going to change how I spend my time. And I've noticed just in the amount of time that I've started reading, which has been about a month and a half now, I've gone through like 5 books, which is like, I haven't read 5 books in years. And, you know, I feel smarter. I feel like my pattern recognition has gotten better, which is something that is extremely important right now, is developing your advanced pattern recognition, because when you're looking at a authoritarian or an autocratic country or form of government, the best way to undermine that is to use your advanced pattern recognition to call out the discrepancies, because it's all about lies. That's literally all lies. They just lie about everything. So if you're able to recognize and say, well, I know based on X, Y, and Z, like a good example is the Treasury came out the other day. They said, oh, consumer spending is up 5%, right? So they're pointing to this number. They're like, this is great. Well, if you adjust for inflation, that number goes down to just about like 2%, around 2%, right? But if you don't use your context, your contextual clues, your advanced pattern recognition to say, well, they're saying one thing, I know they lie, let me go look at other data to get closer to the truth. And the only way you can do that is by developing your advanced pattern recognition and even reading. I read fantasy books, okay? Like, I'm reading about all kinds of cool shit. You got dragons and wyverns and queens and kings, and I love it. But also it's about a dictator who's an evil king, right? Who's taking over, and, you know, he's genociding all the magic users and whatever. You still see advanced pattern tyranny in these books, and tyranny is the same everywhere. It's always the same. It doesn't matter. Tyranny is tyranny. It doesn't matter if there's elves and, you know, dragons, or if there's, you know, Nazis, and it's always the same.
Yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned that, because I think that fiction is essential, and it's something that we do plan to incorporate into our Anti-Fascist Book Club reading list. You know, one of the reasons that I haven't put them on yet is because I want to make sure that I do this carefully. I remember the night that I read 1984 from cover to cover. It was in August of 2007, and it was just after I left the military. At the time, I was a libertarian who was really into Ron Paul, and with that came like a lot of conspiracy theories. You know, that's when YouTube started to become like really popular, and I was spending a lot of time watching crazy shit on YouTube and being like, oh, I don't know what to believe. So reading 1984, when I was in that headspace, was probably not optimal. So I want to be careful when I list a fiction section within the Anti-Fascist Book Club, because it can be fulfilling, or it can be crushing. Because when you start, I mean, 1984 in the context of today, if I were still in the same headspace and I read that book for the first time today, I feel like I'd be extremely disturbed. And I don't want to do that. I want to make sure that I'm empowering people. With that said, I don't read a lot of fiction. So I will be asking people for advice on what should be included.
Shane, we got a
Fahrenheit
question.
451. Oh, shoot. Yeah, for sure.
We got a question actually for you. Was which book were you talking about?
Oh, so the series is called Throne of Glass. It's by Sarah
okay.
Sarah
J. Maas.
Maas. Yes,
Or Maas,
and
yeah.
it's Maas. It's rocking, dude. It's rocking, and it's all about empowering women. It's about a princess. My fiance turned me onto it, and she's a princess who was abandoned, and she's reclaiming her throne, and she's coming into her own, and gaining confidence and strength. And if you have a daughter, get them the frickin' book, because it's all about powerful women. And we need more of that. I mean, a large part of our cultural shift is, and I'm going to shift a little bit just to kind of point this out, but I promise I won't go too far, is in a country where you have a meritocracy that primarily benefited men, and then you empower women. Women are better at this shit than men, because men haven't had to try. And they created a meritocracy, but then women start to outperform men, and men react. It's all about the pendulum. What we're seeing is the reaction, this growth in misogyny. This suddenly you have women who can have a career and they don't need no man. And then all these incels are like, why don't women want to be with me? Because you're a fucking incel, bro. Like, that's why. But so it's all about exposing. Even if you have a son, expose men to strong women, and that can be done in fiction.
It doesn't have to be fiction, because you can get books like Bad Girls throughout history that I just picked up in DC, and this is actually a second copy. They have an original that my daughter already has, so that everyone in your household will have access to history of badass women.
So
yeah, I think a kid's book list too is also something that I should consider putting up there.
Well,
Yes,
you got a kid to read to now.
Mm-hmm.
And so I want to get to, because we've only got a couple more minutes, and I think this is a really good segue point for this first episode. Maybe we even have to come back and keep talking about this one for another episode too. We're going to be doing this, by the way, everyone, every Friday, 12:30 Eastern, until we give it up, which will be a very long time from now. And Chris, you're always welcome back whenever you have time or want to, and come discuss with us. Your knowledge and presence is really appreciated, and we'd love to continue to bring on additional guests as well throughout. And everybody in the discussions, thank you for participating. There are a ton of people here with us today. So I want to ask on this last one, this big last piece of bold, which is a positive idea, is an independent media presents a clear threat to a fascist leader. Mm-hmm. Can we talk about how we can continue to bolster and build an independent media with what we're all doing? Sell yourself a little bit in this as well as part of it. But also, like, what can people be doing to support independent media right now?
So if you are not a subscriber to Banner and Backbone yet, I want to encourage you to do that. Go to Substack, look for Banner and Backbone, look for everyone who's on screen right now, and subscribe. You don't have to pay for everything if you're not able to, or you're not ready to support us. That's fine. But if you subscribe, we will be able to contact you. You will be able to get our work. Now, if Substack ever gets sabotaged, the one thing that is really valuable and unique about Substack is it is a social media platform that also allows creators to go direct to those folks who want to consume their content. So if I get kicked off of Substack, I can take the list of contacts that I have who subscribed, and I can put them into Beehive or another email distribution platform. So that is the most essential thing, is just simply connect. Make sure you hit the subscribe button, not just follow. I have been on a journey of creating new media this year. It has kind of been my 2025 journey. I have a podcast with a bunch of other dudes called that used to be part of White Dudes for Harris. It's called the Find Out Podcast. My co-host Tim has been on your show before, and we are so glad to work with all of you. To see you growing, to see your organization grow, and for those who can financially support us, a Substack subscription of $6 for Find Out. I don't know what the price is for yours, but $8 for mine. Like, those are the things that allow us to do this work. This is now my full-time job. Content creation is the way that I have chosen to stake out a living, and it is nerve-wracking, but it is worth it. I've run these nonprofits. Veterans Fighting Fascism and the Anti-Fascist Book Club is not something that pays me. It is just simply public education that I feel compelled to do as a patriotic American. But I need to eat. I just had a kid, and I need to make sure that I am dedicating my time in a way that I get compensated for. It coming from the nonprofit world, even with all the struggles, the years of not paying myself. It's still difficult for me to ask people to pay, but we are in a place where we are watching traditional media fail and bow and bend the knee to Donald Trump and his authoritarian takeover. We are not going to do that. So if you are still watching us now, I want to encourage you to subscribe, support us. Make sure you check out the Find Out podcast, my Substack, On Offense with Chris Goldsmith, and you must subscribe to this show right here, Banner and Backbone.
Chris, thank you. Thank you so much. Shane, Melissa, any last thoughts before we close out for the day?
Yeah, I mean, I'm currently, one of my goals, right, is like Chris said, like, it's hard to do this full time. Well, I'm trying really hard to be able to commit more to this. And one of the ways I can do that is through those paid subscriptions, so I can step down to a part-time role. So I am currently running a subscription offer of 50% off for lifetime, annual, and monthly. If you do decide to subscribe, the best way to support is monthly because it guarantees a more consistent income. But what I will say is that is what I like. I'd love to be part of Anti-Fascist Book Club every week, but my job won't let me. Like, I am able to do this week, and I'm having so much fun. And I think it's been exceptionally valuable. But at the same time, like, as creators here, we need your help to continue doing what we're doing. Otherwise, we can't do it. And that's what the Firebrand Project is all about. It's not about me. It's never been about me. It's about you guys. And it's about creating a launch pad for dialogue that needs to be had. So if you are able to support the Firebrand Project right now, I am running that. And if you can help me get closer to my goal, maybe I can be part of Anti-Fascist Book Club every week. So if you liked seeing me over here being, making jokes about Megamind and upsetting Nick, consider going over to the Firebrand Project. But I'll toss the potato over to you, Melissa.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just gonna mirror everything you just said. I'm also Counterstory Media exists to audit the narrative. We tell personal narratives to address harmful existing societal narratives that are false. So obviously that is very time intensive work. And on top of that, I've been taking on the in-person anti-fascist book clubs and other community organizing in person. So I'm also taking this work offline. So I'm just going to mimic exactly what he said. The more paid subscribers I have, the more of my time I can dedicate to this work, both online and offline.
And finally, thanks everyone. Come also support me at Sick of This Shit with Nick. I won't repeat everything, but I appreciate it too. And we will see everyone back again next week at 12:30 p.m. Eastern time for episode 3. We're going to continue on discussing what is fascism, mostly because I haven't gotten my On Tyranny yet from the bookstore. It's still in the mail, and I don't want to have to crunch through trying to read it. So, and we didn't get all the way through. So again, Chris, thanks for all of your time today. We really appreciate it. I appreciate you coming on and helping us, and being a part of this with us. It's more important now than ever. Go support your teams, go support your communities, and go start your own anti-fascist book club. Use what we gave you today to help start your own. And we'll talk to y'all again and see you next week. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks. See you next time.
Burn bright, everybody.
Hello, good afternoon, good morning, good time of day, whatever it is for you in the world. Good to see y'all. It's Banner and Backbone, the Anti-Fascist Book Club, episode 3, coming with you with Nick Perro, Melissa Corrigan, and Shane Urick today. It is great to see both of you. Welcome, friends. How are you?
Hello. Great.
I'm happy to be here. Let's talk some shit about fascism. Let's do it.
Absolutely. And I'm pulling up some chats, so I've got all the lives going on my side. But today we're going to continue our discussion from last week, where we were going over the Task Force Butler Veterans Fighting Fascism, What is Fascism document, and can it happen here? We didn't get all the way through the reading, so I wanted to pick it back up. And lucky thing is the three of us were all here last week as part of the reading club. So we have a great group to, just pick it back up where we left off, and get the discussion going again. So want to do a little bit of recap on what the Anti-Fascist Book Club is and isn't, where we're getting our reading list from, and what's next on the reading list, and then we'll obviously remind at the end of the show. So Melissa, would you mind introducing all of us to what the book clubs actually are and what they aren't? And do you want me to pull up a screen showing some of the baseline and getting us just that little bit of intro?
Yes, absolutely. So, first of all, what we are not, I feel like I always have to issue this disclaimer, particularly where I live. We are in no way affiliated with Antifa, which we all know isn't like a thing anyway, but just putting that out there. We are an organization of veterans and interested citizens who would like to preserve democracy through the study of history and fascist behaviors in history, and align them with things that we see happening in our current society to be better informed, educated, and empowered to go out and make positive change. So
That's
I think
fantastic.
Cap
Yeah, I think that's a great recap, and really highlights what we're doing and why we're doing it. So let me keep pulling some stuff up. Shane, do you want to say good morning to everyone and just give me a moment?
Yeah. So welcome to Anti-Fascist Book Club, Banner and Backbone. I get to hang out with Nick and Melissa now every Friday, so you guys are stuck with me. I teased you guys a little bit last week, said I was only here for the one time, but psych, I'm back. I'm back every Friday, and you're going to see me a lot more on Banner and Backbone. You're going to see a lot more of the Firebrand Project because democracy calls. So here we are. and Nick's gotta get his like 12 screens up. He's playing war games over here. Command and control. So, but
it's all that call it or not call it Warcraft and Starcraft and all of those games.
Right.
Learning Command and Conquer, just learning
That's
those
right.
board games, putting all the pieces in place.
You're playing like 4 games on 4 different monitors simultaneously, so you don't have to wait when the other turns are going, so you're constantly stimulated.
Yeah, it's like playing different games of Civ, like Civ 6 or 6, 7, whatever version they're on right now, but you're all the characters, but you're on different screens, so you don't get the same backgrounds. I'm ADHD as fuck, and I was in tech, so like I used to just sit there and play Civ 6 or like Civ 5 and just like hours and hours of just, God, I want to get to space. I need to get to space. And then 12 hours later, I'm like, shit, I'm not in space yet, and I'm dying. Anyway, welcome, everyone. Let me get shifted over. Oh, is Ellie with us in the chat? Oh, Ellie, are you able to, do you want to be able to join us on screen? Or you said you were at work earlier, so I didn't want to bother your day. But if you want to join us, I'll send you over a link. And we can get you on the show too. But let's switched over to our book and do a quick recap, or our writing and reading and do a quick recap of the beginning, and get ourselves back into it where we left off. So this, I will drop a link in all the chats as we go. And this is from Task Force Butler itself. This is the What is Fascism and Can It Happen Here document. Thanks, Shane. Appreciate that for dropping the link. And so last week we went over the overview, the very general section of what is fascism. I think we all know at this point what fascism is, but they're broken down into the 4 main categories, which are power, control, loyalty, and grievance. Last week, we were able to get through this intro section and power and control. And I definitely want to get to loyalty, and we're going to start with loyalty.
Isn't it crazy that we're starting with loyalty the week that the generals have been summoned?
I know, and I really, really hope a lot of those generals remember their pre-World War II history and what happened in Germany with generals, because it's a long night, and Pete Hegseth is a piece of shit. Demand loyalty, because at this point they are in the consolidation. They have power. Control, they want loyalty. They need loyalty, because the biggest thing in the way of fascism is the military at this point, our generals. The generals have the power, and historically speaking, the generals in this country have always said no, unless they were Confederates. But they weren't generals of this country. Those were traitors. Generals who are loyal to the Constitution, and there have been decades and decades and decades and 2 centuries now, over 2 centuries of generals, longer than the U.S. itself. The U.S. Army flag is 1775, not 1776. The Army was there before the country, and it was there fighting against what at this point could have been considered a fascist regime of a monarchy with taxation without representation. We're living through a fascist regime of robber barons and dictators and oligarchs with taxation without representation. But the military has always said no. The generals have always stood up. Now is going to be the most important time they ever do it. And I hope those generals all remember they swore an oath to the Constitution decades ago. They've reaffirmed that oath throughout their careers, over and over and over, through presidents, through Republican presidents, through Democratic presidents, through all presidents, because it's not the president that they swore the oath to, it's the Constitution. Remember your oath, because loyalty to the Constitution has to come first.
And I'd like to add, for anyone who didn't serve in the military, every rank in the military is educated on your constitutional duty. And the higher your rank goes, the deeper and more complex that education is, to the point where if you are an admiral or a general, you have a very, very clear idea through education provided by the military of what your constitutional duty is. Now, I live in a military town. The coffee shop I go to almost every morning, heavily military. It's next to a Coast Guard little station. There's coasties in there. There's sailors in there. Nobody talks politics ever. Like it's just sort of a, we get it, right? This morning, people were talking politics in my coffee shop, and people in uniform were talking politics. I've never seen it. I've never seen that happen ever. People are extremely, and people in uniform are extremely concerned about Pete Hegseth calling over 100 high-ranking generals, the highest-ranking generals, into DC with no layout of what this meeting is.
No. And
I have
on top
a
of that,
question for the civvy guy here. All right. So I think, would you guys say that a large reason that we probably still have yet to see anything really out of the military, despite how fucked up things are right now, is this like these generals to a large degree like clinging to this this nonpartisanship, that this apoliticism that they're supposed to have. So they're like so desperately clinging to any possible way for them to not have to do this like very uncomfortable thing that is unprecedented. Yes. Would you say that's
I don't think it's unprecedented, though. I think it's terribly, terribly stupid. But we've done things where generals have gathered before. And so from a veteran's point of view, and from a family that has a rich history in the military, and I've studied U.S. history through most of my life, the thing that separated us and that let us keep the military apolitical, the roots of that, were from George Washington laying down his sword and stepping out of command as a military commander to become the civilian commander-in-chief. And there is a concept within, especially within the upper ranks and within officers. It's there for enlisted, especially higher rank enlisted soldiers. Lower rank enlisted are still learning how to not be political when they're in uniform. Like, that's part of the teaching process in the military. It is very baked in to be apolitical. It is the only organization in the world, as Bobby Jones said last night on Blue Amp Media with Cliff Schechter and David Schuster, it's the only organization where they'll throw a white supremacist from the South, neo-Nazi from the South, and a gangbanger from a city into the same unit and tell them, fucking make it work. And they do.
And they do.
And they get over it. And they get over the fact that one of them's a racist piece of shit, the other's a semi-racist piece of shit. They're just from different backgrounds, and they have to learn how to work together. The military is the boiling pot of America. Like, it is the most diverse. It's the most DEI organization. It's the most core segment of America. If you want to know what's happening to the rest of America, look what's happening to veterans. And they're tearing the veteran community apart by politicizing them. And it's a really bad precedent Donald Trump is trying to set. And the 800 generals that were brought back, the issue also is it leaves us vulnerable. Every
Melissa,
single one of those
I'm sorry, go
generals
ahead.
had a job to do and was doing a job. They don't get to the fucking rank of general for no fucking reason. Like, so this leaves us really unsecure and unsafe, especially after, like, what, 2 days ago or yesterday they intercepted Russian nuclear bombers in international airspace outside of Alaska. And NATO is being tested on a daily basis, and we are trying to provoke a war in Venezuela. So, power, control. Next step is loyalty, because if they want to start a war, they need the generals to say yes.
I had a question in my chat that I just want for Melissa,
Yeah.
actually, and someone was asking, like, what were they saying? You know, was there anything that stuck out to you that, like, really, like, perked up your ears when you were in your coffee shop this morning?
There, most of the the people in uniform that were in there were pretty lower enlisted ranks, and they're really concerned about loyalty. Like they kept saying, "Is this going to be a loyalty thing?"
Mm,
And do all of us, like they kind of were like, or do all of us have to follow the loyalty of the admiral we fall under? You know what I mean? They were like
yeah,
essentially, are we taking sides at this point? Which led me to, that was a very interesting way to frame that. Like, does the military see this as an internal thing? Like there will be military against military. That was very interesting to me. So
Yeah.
that was
yeah,
the conversation, was, is this a loyalty pledge and how does that trickle down to me?
yeah,
Yeah.
wow,
And it will. It will. It's going to be a lot of hard decisions. And the thing with the military too is a lot of these young E1s, E2 privates, through specialists, even E5 sergeants, they're looking for leadership to help them make the right decisions and understand if the decision that they're doing is ethical or moral or legal. Because those questions have to be asked and answered. And the idea of, is an order legal or not, really needs to be hashed out in terms of who gets to make that choice. And I hear a lot of people talking about it as though it has to get litigated through the courts. That was not how I was taught. That's not how I was taught, that your duty to loyalty is to the Constitution first. And if that order is anti-constitutional or unconstitutional, or to be illegal, you don't follow it. Not, oh, I think I might need to follow it now and then maybe I'll report it after. No, you say no in the moment. You will get court-martialed. You will get brought charges. They will bring charges against you if you try to say no. They will try and ruin your career. It's going to take courage. Courage is, and I loved how Bobby Jones put this. Sorry, I'm going on a slight tangent on this before we get into it. Bobby Jones talked about this last night too, was like the reason that the Navy's motto is has courage over bravery is because bravery is the assumption of doing it without fear. Courage is doing it while you're still afraid and with fear. When we need citizens to be courageous, we need soldiers and service members and sailors and airmen and airwomen and submariners and Marines to all stand up and Coast Guard members to all say no. When it comes time, in the moment, you do not need to litigate it. Officers, please shut up about saying you have to litigate things before they can be deemed illegal orders. I was a sergeant. I was on the ground. We told you no. It is command driven, mission driven. Soldiers, service members, say no. If you think it's illegal, say fucking no. That is the loyalty test. Is, are you loyal to the Constitution, and will you say no when an illegal order is given in the moment?
Right.
Because just following orders did not work the first time around for the Nazis.
Right. And
So,
just like with corporations, the true power of a corporation lies in middle management. If you have shitty middle management, you're going to have high turnover and low
Yeah.
morale, and your company's not going to thrive. So the true power lies in middle management, and it is exactly the same in the military, particularly in this instance. If chiefs in the Navy and sergeants elsewhere say no, say this order stops here, and
mhm,
honestly, I'm not sure about other branches, but when you're in the Navy and you achieve the rank of chief, they take you away for a private retreat. Like, it is a really, really big deal. And that is part of what they teach chiefs, that you are now the barrier to
mhm,
lower enlisted people to everybody in khakis above you. You are the barrier to stop illegal orders, to stop harassment, to stop any negativity. And it's also your job to funnel down the correct orders. So that middle management level of military is really, whatever happens on Monday with the generals is one thing. When it trickles down, that middle management level is where we're really going to see where the military's mettle is. Like, where does the true heart of the military lie? If Fox News has been successful in the past 20 years of being on every fucking screen, on every base and every ship, then we may see a failure at that level. And I
yeah,
sincerely hope that I am wrong.
yeah.
Is that largely and we saw a long time, like, things come and go, right? But like unilateral firing of all of those JAGs, right? Like, how important is their absence in this moment? Like,
Hugely.
Tremendous.
So huge. Because they're the ones who would defend the soldiers and the service members or sailors or the chief or the senior non-commissioned officer from your branch or even warrant officers in the army. Like, if they're the guardians of truth and loyalty and understanding, because they guide and help. They're your leaders. They're supposed to be there. Officers, you better fucking step up and say no before it ever gets to an enlisted soldier. That's your job.
Yes.
Your duty is to never allow an illegal order to get to your soldiers. You should never put your soldiers in the position where they have to defy an illegal order, because then you're putting their life and their teammates' lives on the line because you could not make a decision. Officers, step the fuck up. You went to school for this. You've trained for this. Step the fuck up. Because Jag getting fired, Shane, that's huge. That was huge. That was the first step. We all knew, those of us who served knew this was coming when Jag got this, is basically getting dismantled. They don't want service members to be able to know their rights. They don't
Right.
want service members to know that they can say no.
Yeah, along those lines, I just dropped the GI Rights hotline number into the chat. If anybody watching is active duty or knows someone who is active duty, or just share it, go make a post and share it on all your socials so it's out there. Because without JAG, they are going to have to reach out to outside sources, and the GI Rights hotline will advise them. They are experts in that field to advise them.
you know what? Something else we can do as well. Perfect. I know Nick's got it, but after this live stream as well, one thing that I can do, I'll mention it on my show later today, the Firebrand Report, but I think we should all, if you're in the chat, everyone make a note, share this number, because the big thing about Substack and all of this is about amplifying using our own voices. So me, Nick, and Melissa, we can share this in a note, but we cannot understate just hearing Nick and Melissa talk about this from their own personal experience and their deeper understanding of the importance of what these soldiers don't have access to right now in this critical moment. I'm looking at the chat. I'm going to guess I have two of them open, probably close to 200 people in here right now. One thing each of you you're all here because you care about fighting fascism. You care about defending our democracy. To do that, an action you can take today is to take that phone number you see going across the bottom of the screen, write it down after you're done today, make a note and say to anyone who knows a member, has a family member or a friend in the service, share this number with them. Doesn't matter if you have 0 followers. Trust me, The algorithm cares. You can all do this. If you're as scared as all three of us here are right now, because we are scared, just because we put on this face and smile and, you know, talk about this like it doesn't bother us, it bothers the shit out of every single one of us. So, you know, that's how we can all be united on this front. And that's a really easy thing you guys can do to fight fascism and to stop, you know, potentially making this situation be just as horrible as these two have described for our servicemen and women.
Yeah. So let's get into the reading and go down to the sections. And we'll skip over power. We already know the fetishization of power and presenting themselves as strongman with carefully curated propaganda, a cult of personality, and ritualized showcases of military strength. We've seen those. They're trying to do them. The military has still said no. If you remember the one from Donald Trump's birthday parade, his tiny squeaky tank squeaking along, just service members giving hearts on the screen and shit. Like, they knew what they were doing. That was subtle protest from the military, and it wasn't very fucking subtle. That was protest because officers allowed that to happen. You would not have gone through a ceremony like that. Like, I've been through change of command ceremonies and things like that. We can be precise. These guys were not.
Yeah.
They ruined the big showcase of ritualized military strength. Take heart in that. That means a lot of folks take their oaths really seriously. Those were Green Berets too. Those are the best of the best. They are meant to kill. They are trained killers. That's what they do. That's what they do for a living. I mean, they're really good at it too. And they were having a joke on the president. You wouldn't joke with the president any other time. So the power is there, but I think it's also an illusion. They want us to think they're more powerful than they are. Next is our control. This is where we're sort of at right now. Is, if you all want to know, welcome to being freedom fighters in America. They are trying to label it as terrorism. It is not. Do not use their word. That is not what it is. Terrorism is what right-wing nut jobs who have been black-pilled and nihilists who are killing people do. Terrorism is not what we're doing. We are freedom fighters. But let's get into the big section for the day, which is loyalty. We're going to hit to our big bold points. Let me scroll down just a little bit so that it shows on the screen. The leader cannot fail, the leader cannot fail. He can only be failed. So, Melissa, do you want to talk a little bit about your thoughts on this and how it's possibly related, still digging into what's going on Monday? Because I think that's hugely important and we need to really, really talk about that stuff. What do you think about that in context with the 800 generals that have been called back for a meeting?
Yeah, it's quite clear to me. And we also have from the world of the press as it relates to the Department of Defense is that journalists were told, if you want to come back in the Pentagon and report from the Pentagon, you have to sign this pledge that you will essentially, not verbatim, but essentially, you will only report what we say you can report. And if you didn't sign that pledge, you are no longer allowed in the press pool inside the Pentagon. So you lose access entirely. So this puts journalists in a position do you sign that? And then you go in and attempt to gather information and disseminate that information in some other way? Or do you refuse to sign a loyalty pledge to a regime and are then denied access to the Pentagon? With that action happening first, I cannot fathom that this meeting is far off base from that. I think they are establishing a base of loyalty, a base of first the press that will report what they want, and then the military leaders who will engage in the activity that they want. So this section really chilled me when I read it this week, because to me it feels like that's exactly what's going on. Is we are demanding a loyalty to this administration that has never been seen before in this country. Short, I mean, McCarthyism definitely was an example of this, but engaging the military in this way will rocket it past what happened during the McCarthyistic era.
Yeah.
This is something that as we're talking about this loyalty, right, and this idea, and like you kind of go back, I had two thoughts when I saw this, but the first in relation to this is this loyalty in and of itself is one of the greatest weaknesses within fascism. First, like this loyalty within fascism and the requirement of loyalty is, if you look historically, right, like, and we look at what actually fucked Hitler, it was his insistence of the invasion of Russia, like to push in, and they said we shouldn't like go back in, like we should just hold it, and all of his generals were like, no, but he was so tweaked out at that point, he was like, we're gonna do it, and they all did it, and guess what? Like, it lost them the war. It was the catalyst. Millions of soldiers were lost. It was that loyalty to the wrong idea, to doing the wrong thing in the eye of loyalty, and that's double fasted. You have the example where people who maybe know that it's the right thing do the wrong thing to be loyal anyway, and then you have the smart people were replaced, and then you have inefficient people doing the job, which can also lead to a failure in that point as well. So when we talk about looking at this loyalty, and then I think about that in our military, and I think about just observations I have already of, our recent military operations, and like the actual efficacy of like what we've been doing is like, we've lost way more shit historically than we have, at least in my observation. Like, jets are falling off of aircraft carriers, we're calling success and then, killing all of these, innocent civilians and dropping bombs and not hitting the targets, and I have to wonder, does this have something to do with the removal of a lot of these leaders on the basis of, I don't know, being a woman? Because Pete Hegseth is a misogynist, alcoholic piece of shit,
Yes.
And I have to wonder, maybe that's real-time examples of the negative side of that loyalty.
Yeah,
Well,
because
yeah.
that's we're looking at it with this cabinet. He hired people that were loyalists over anything else, and none of them know how to do their jobs even remotely, like not even remotely. So you have a bunch of loyalists running major departments of the federal government, and they are crumbling beneath their leadership because their loyalty to do whatever, dear leader has as a whim today is they're trying to push out programs faster than he even changes his mind on things, and they're like, oh no, we're reversing on that. Okay, so it's all a shit show. You see the Department of Health absolutely falling apart because anything that Trump decides is unhealthy trickles down to what RFK will decide is unhealthy, and then that's what we're all we're all subject to this nonsense. So that's a really great point, that when you have loyalty over qualification, you get a lot of idiots in charge.
The idiocracy.
Well, it's cronyism too. It's our next highlighted part is the idea of cronyism in a fascist context overall. Cronyism is built-in corruption. It is built in using loyalty instead of merit. Like, if they really wanted a meritocracy, DEI would be built in, because that is how you get a meritocracy. You have to have 100% of the population be available to, or 100% of the workforce be able to be applicable for it, to actually get the best of the best. Because if you exclude people, then you're not getting the best of the best, possibly. Like, and if you're excluding people just on arbitrary reasons, like, oh, they're black or a woman or Hispanic or Asian or Jewish or not a nationalist Christo-fascist, then it's cronyism. Or it's accepting $50,000 in a kava bag, ham-faced Tom Homan, and not getting charged by the FBI at the time that it happened, under the Democratic administration of Joe Biden. That's cronyism too. That was a failure on Joe Biden and our Democratic leadership's part to actually do their damn jobs. Cronyism was accepting Mitch McConnell's excuse that they'll get over it and not impeaching Donald Trump when he incited an insurrection on January 6th. That's cronyism. That's what we're seeing. Stephen Miller is the effect of cronyism. That's like basically what he and Russell Vought are cronyists doing cronyism and being fucking assholes to everyone. At least that's my opinion on this big next part of the section is cronyism. And not only did cronyism collapse or lead to the failure of the Nazis and Germany, it also led to the failure of the USSR. That's the reason Russia became Russia and stopped being the USSR in the long run, is because they replaced competent generals and military leadership with loyalists. And whenever you do that, you lose, because loyalists don't make good choices. Loyalists think about the leader and not about the thing that they're actually protecting.
And, if it just to bring, a little bit of, you said the USSR collapsed, and it makes me think, I was trying to find some positivity in my day, which is hard these days. And I'm like, at least we're not living through Stalin's Great Purge. We could be living through Stalin's Great Purge. And you know what? America, not even Trump's fascists have the stomach to do what Stalin did, because there's a reason he might be the worst human being ever to live. And yes, people say Adolf Hitler. No, I think Stalin has a real good shot at it. So, when you're looking at the news today and you're like, fuck, this sucks, be like, at least I'm not living through the Great Purge. At least Stalin's not the supreme leader. Just find a little positive there.
I want to ruin your positivity and remind you that our RFK Jr. is our health and human sacrifices director, and he is engineering a plague, and they are killing USAID. They just gave billions of dollars to Argentina instead of US citizens. They are demonizing medications. They are demonizing vaccines. People are going to die all over the place. I think Donald Trump is going to attempt to be worse, or the people who are with him, because you and I have talked about this before, the Curtis Yarvins of the world. And you're going to have to meet with the opinionated ogre, Shane. I'm going to get him on to a Palin talk with us.
Sweet.
Because he brought up the Silicon Valley religion, basically, that nihilistic religion that they all believe in. And he knows he's done some articles on it, and I want to do a deep dive with him around that, similar in vein to like learning what we do here, y'all. Like, this is an educational thing for all of you, but as a reminder too, while we're doing this, this is Banner and Backbone bringing you the Anti-Fascist Book Club. If you can tell, we're not doing anything weird or crazy. We're not advocating for violence. In fact, we're just educating. Our advocation is always against violence. I'm going to be very specific. Against violence. Yeah, Courtney, Health and Human Sacrifices. That was a Jacob Summers thing, Coach Cap. You guys should all follow him and subscribe to him. He's a good friend of mine. But they're using all of this is like they're using cronyism. They've been building it over decades, and failures on leadership from the Democratic side and the Republican side. It's not a one-sided issue. That I think we're past the point where we need to talk about the fact that Democrats have failed us miserably. Corporate Democrats are miserably not meeting this moment. There are some Democrats who are. I'm not saying, don't remember, like, we're not going to say all Democrats, because I am not going to lump Jasmine Crockett in, or AOC in, or some of the other, representatives are so hard to remember their names, and senators. But I do know Jasmine Crockett and AOC.
The Democratic establishment has failed, not the individual people. And I always like to say, it's like these people who we love that are fighting and are awesome. They ran as Democrat because that was the only avenue in a two-party system that they could win on that platform. It's not because they're Democrats. It's because they could only run as a Democrat if they wanted to get on the ballot, right? So, the establishment itself, that means Yes, it does mean the Schiffs, the Schumers, the Pelosi's, all of them. Okay, all of anyone who's been sitting there more than 10 years, you fucked up. You know, I mean, I don't even like it. We shouldn't be here. If you've been there 10 years and now you're finally starting to realize that, oh no, this is a problem. You built the problem by conceding again and again and again for the sake of, you know, Obama was like, they go low, we go high. Guys, I'll be honest with you, that shit doesn't work, because if you go high and they keep punching you in the stomach, you're just missing. Again, it's like, it's stupid to me but I'm going to go on a tangent. But anyway, to your point, the establishment has failed us, not those individuals you're talking about, those Crockett's, those Winters, those, you know, Ocasio-Cortez.
Swalwells.
Yeah.
And that's cronyism too. Like, it is cronyism what's going on. They were bought, the Democratic establishment, the establishment portion has been bought and paid for, just like the Republican establishment is bought and paid for, just like our media is being bought and paid for through Nexstar and Sinclair, which are, by the way, very right-wing groups, or Oracle, and Larry Ellison and David Ellison. Like, they control so much power in the US and are a monopoly. They're trying to make an 80% media saturation monopoly. The rule for media saturation, that like the monopoly line of what they consider a monopolized market, is 30% saturation ownership. Sinclair and Nexstar combined make 89% ownership. They're just blowing away the rules to allow cronyism, because they're controlling both the distribution mechanism and the distributor. They're creating a monopsony. We talked about this, right, Shane? You and I have talked about the monopsony that Shyam Sankar wants, one of the CEOs of Palantir, is when you control both the means of production and the means of distribution, you have a monopsony, which is a monopoly, but on both sides.
Right. And when you have, like Yanni mentioned in the chat, when you have Peter Thiel holding a 3-part talk on the end times, which he alone has the money and power to facilitate happening, more people are not slightly alarmed by that and find that a little bit odd. A man who's never been outwardly Christian, has never spoken or written any type of content on Christianity whatsoever, is now touting this deep faith that he has, that has led him to do this 3-part lecture series on the Antichrist. That's definitely weird, right? Like,
yeah, there's some cronyism there.
That's very odd.
Yeah, like cronyism is people being bought off and paid off to spread a message. Like, look what happened with Russia too during our last election, when we found out, and then nothing happened about it, that Russia paid multiple far-right nihilist podcasters to spout Russian propaganda. That's cronyism. It was allowed. Cryptocurrency, replacing the US dollar with cryptocurrency, is cronyism in the worst fucking way. They're destroying our money to enrich themselves. Stealing all of our Social Security benefits is cronyism.
Right.
Lobbying is cronyism. We've legalized corruption and called it lobbying.
Yeah, I mean, like at this point too, like when you look at loyalty, you have, and to expand on this, right? Because as we read this, one of the things you're going to go down here, and there's a couple points. You see fascist street gangs. What are the fascist street gangs? They're ICE. Okay, so ICE was a fascist street gangs. I've seen videos now to the point where ICE is literally just a fucking white dude in a, you know, long sleeve shirt, and some khakis with a gun, tackling some guy. I mean, like literally, they don't even have to wear a badge. They don't have to identify themselves. Fuck, me and Nick could go out and pretend to be ICE agents with a gun and our khakis and some handcuffs we got at the general store or wherever, you know, and boom. So there's
we won't,
street gangs,
but we could.
We won't. We won't.
That's
like,
the
that's
thing.
not something. But that's the thing, right? Like, you know, maybe we could pretend to be arrest the ICE agents because they're not. Hey, you could be a fake ICE agent. Anyway, that's stupid. I'm gonna keep going.
That's also a felony. I'm not going to advocate for doing impersonating federal officers because that is a felony, and
Right.
we do not want to be the unlawful people, like peaceful and patriotic. But yeah, like the deployment of
My
troop gangs,
sarcasm.
yeah. But I want to make sure, just so
clear
everyone
there.
is clear, we can't be sued. Nobody's going to
Yes,
sue us
no,
here.
that's
Like,
fair.
we are not advocating for violence. We are, in
No.
fact, advocating against and teaching against and teaching what is bringing it.
Correct.
And I think we're at a great point because we could spend an entire month just talking about ICE and the fascist streaking that is coming and here. I want to talk more, though, violence and the militarization of politics. We see that. Let's actually stop there because we've got our two biggest pieces right here is violence and the militarization of politics, and our absolute loyalty and politically motivated violence are a lethal combination. And this is the night of the long knives. This is what we're talking about, where the Nazi Party purged the military leadership. This is what they are going to do. Like, don't have any doubt in your mind that if they can do the worst thing possible, they're going to do it. It's like Occam's razor, but it's Trump's razor, because Occam's razor doesn't match quite enough about how dumb that the Trump administration is going to be. And if they can do it, they're going to do it.
Right. And the mention in this section, the things that really stood out to me bigly were the mention of martyrs, the martyrdom. So now we have our first martyr. And while it was not technically a government official or a military leader, why did our government leader speak at his memorial? Why did his memorial turn into a government rally where the highest leaders of military spoke? And they did not speak just memorializing Charlie Kirk. In fact, they did very, very little memorializing Charlie Kirk. They each issued speeches that were essentially edicts. They were dog whistles to everyone listening. They were thickly overlaid with messages of violence and aggression. And further down there, it talks about youth indoctrination. Turning Point USA is a youth indoctrination organization. And since that assassination of Charlie Kirk, my kids, who are really not legally politically actively, I mean, one of them's voted like twice, my kids started getting texts from Turning Point, and then I started getting texts. So they're buying every list in America to flood people with personal contacts from Turning Point USA. And if that's not youth indoctrination, if Turning Point USA is not our version of the Hitler Youth, I don't know what is.
And on top of that, plus the 39 other organizations, because Turning Point USA and 39 other far right conservative organizations are now in partnership with the Department of Justice, Department of Education, to rewrite civics and redefine our civic education system in the United States. That is youth indoctrination. That is creating a little white nationalist Hitler Youth across the US. They're going to use AI. They're going to fucking make it all this meritocracy based sounding shit. They're going to teach girls and women that they are lesser. They're going to teach that slavery was okay, because that's what PragerU teaches. And like, they literally teach that slavery had its upsides for the black people who were enslaved, and they were okay with it. They enjoyed it. No, the fuck they didn't.
To further tie those pieces together, I checked out the White House press page. If you haven't checked that out lately, you should really check out the fully propagandistic page that is full of links that look like they go to internal White House press documents, and they actually go to articles by The Blaze, The Post Millennial, Fox Business, Fox News, Free Beacon, Breitbart, and the Daily Caller. And the Daily Caller is the news arm of the same organization that runs PragerU. Isn't that weird?
Yeah, weird. Odd coincidence is that.
It's weird enough that our White House is blatantly plastering absolute right-wing propaganda on the official White House press page. But to further connect those dots between PragerU and then on to Turning Point with the Daily Caller, who has a featured article on the White House press page right now.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
PragerU is not a university.
No.
Not legally a university. They're not an education institution. They create homeschooling curriculum for far-right Christian organizations that are now part of our education system in the public schools. They are a Christian-based organization. They are merging religion into education. They're using the theonomy tactics of merging old school Abrahamic faith system laws into civil law to make a Christian theonomy. And I'm going to keep saying the word theonomy for people in the crowd because it's different than a theocracy. A theonomy is taking civil law, merging it with old biblical law through such as PragerU, Turning Point USA, all the other ones, the 38 others that I'm not going to ramble off my head. Heritage Foundation, they're creating a Hitler Youth through school, summer school programs. People aren't talking about Bible camps. People aren't talking about Christian summer camps as Hitler Youth centers or as indoctrination centers. I got told I shouldn't talk about those things, and maybe it's a little offensive that we lump all Christians. No, we need to lump all Christians in at the moment, because if you're not willing to confront it,
together, they would address their own. The good, upstanding, Jesus following Christians would address their own, and since they have not, we all have to address it now.
Yeah, it's like the white people problem. Like Black people and Hispanic folks and Asian folks, everyone who's not white has been screaming about issues of white violence and white crime and white terrorism for years, hundreds of years. And we have refused to listen. So it's time we listen. That's why people say all men. That's why people say all white people. I don't take offense to it because I'm actively out here talking against it. It is not enough to be just a or anti-racist. You have to be actively anti-racist. You have to be actively pro-democracy. You have to be actively pro-life and pro-sanctity and pro-against youth indoctrination through religious organizations as our education system. And Melissa, I've been seeing you talking back and forth in the chat about the PragerU content. So if you're a parent, I'm a parent. I live in Arkansas. You don't think they're going to be bringing this here? If they haven't already, really fast, they will.
Yep.
Like, we already get this type of shit here in Arkansas. You need to watch your kids' education system, and you need to understand what they're doing. Do not pull them out of public school. That's what they want. They want people to pull out of public school. They want a dumber school youth. They want an indoctrinated youth, and they only want a white youth educated. Do not pull your children out of school. Get involved yourself and fight against it. Go to school board meetings. The part of the book club, one of the big things that we want to make sure people understand too, because we have almost 300 people in the audience at this point. Like between the 4 chat groups, we have over almost like 250, almost 300 people in the audience. If every single one of you went out and started an anti-fascist book club at your own local library, because that's what this is all about. We read this. All 3 of us have read through this before, and read about it, or are reading it while it's on the screen, and we're discussing and analyzing. That's all the book club is. It's just teaching you how to communicate with each other, teaching you what things are available and what to look out for, and how to keep your community safe, how to fight back against it, how to push back and go on offense, not attack, but offense, and fight back against this with every legal mechanism that we can until the law isn't enough. But right now, the law needs to be enough, and our actions have to be enough, which means go out and do something, because your kids are getting indoctrinated.
I just, you guys were talking about PragerU. you know, and then like, yeah, they're indoctrinating kids. I was looking on, I'm just looking at their 5-minute videos on their website. Just a couple titles just to give you guys an idea. The truth about fracking. Okay, so we know what that means. What does it mean to be free? What the fuck? So
Look up the
PragerU is
Christopher
now going to be
Columbus
telling.
ones.
Oh, I've seen that. I've seen the ones about him talking about slave. But I mean, like, if you're a parent, like, do yourself a favor, go to PragerU and just browse. You don't even need to look, but look at what your kid is about to get hit with, because like you should be ready for the questions that are going to come from it. Because if you have your kids are great because they come the same. They're always going to ask questions, and when they get fed an answer, you need to be like prepared for what they're going to be asking you, and be ready to give them a good answer, one that can't be rebutted by the garbage that they're getting online. So arm yourself in advance to be able to see what the government and the DOE now is going to be throwing at your kid to try and poison their mind. So, you know, just a quick thought as you were saying that.
I would even as a parent say, don't wait for the questions. You need to be intimately involved with your kids' education. When they come home, have a part in doing their homework with them. Ask them, what did you learn today? Open the conversation, because some of this stuff is, a lot of PragerU stuff is really corny and cheesy, and it's obviously like weird. And I think kids are going to pick up on that. But some of these other organizations are making really slick curriculum, and your child may not catch like those red flags. They may just accept, because a lot of the content, especially out of the Heritage Foundation, is a lot more subtle, and it's a lot more, this is founding fathers language. This is what our founders wanted. So you need to be proactive in having those conversations with your kids every day. What did you learn at school today? Let's talk about it.
Yeah. Be proactive. That's really what it's going to take right now as a parent. Like, I'm a parent. Melissa's a parent. Shane, not a parent yet.
I got fur babies. I always say
you
I
got
love my
fur
dogs,
babies.
but I don't need to teach them to fight fascism. They'd bite Trump on the butt just if I asked them to. So
yeah, and like, now is the time though, like, to get fully engaged and activated with your kids, because we only have a couple more minutes and we've gone a lot on loyalty. I think that was probably the best thing we could have done today, was talk really deep into loyalty in some of the meanings of it. But the next section that we're going to get into, maybe even next week, that way everyone has time. So in 2 weeks, what we'll do is we will plan to start discussing On Tyranny, Timothy Snyder's On Tyranny. So if you have the opportunity between now and 2 weeks, pick up the book either through, bookshop.org or bookstore.org, Melissa, the one?
Bookstore.org, right.
Yeah.
Thrift Books
pick it up
is
through
also
there.
a great way to get books as well. It's a used book site. So I always say, get your books used. It's cheaper, and you know, it's also, they pull from other bookstores. So you're helping local bookstores more than your, Barnes and Noble. So just another good place to look. Thriftbooks.com.
Yeah. And if you have a local library that has the book, go to the library and check out your book. Like, nothing wrong with checking out your book.
If your library doesn't have the book, ask them to get it. Most of the time, they'll get it.
Yeah. And so our next section next week, we're going to talk a lot on grievance, because we're living through grievance structure every single day. It's abusing the shit out of us all the fucking time. But I think getting into what we did today really deeply on loyalty was a great starting point for all of this. So also, too, in our last couple minutes while we close out here, is I'm going to shift us back to our normal main screen without the window. Don't
you just love how the regime just keeps giving us content that matches our curriculum? It's really nice of them.
Yeah, it's nice that they are giving us what we need to learn. Because Chris Goldsmith, a friend of ours, friend of the show, he put this together. He is part of Task Force Butler. He's one of the founders, or I think he is the founder of Task Force Butler. And he and the Task Force Butler team put together the What is Fascism guidebook that we're reading through right now. It's very short, but it's also really important to discuss it deeply because we have to understand what's going on. And so just so everyone's aware, in a couple weeks, we're going to have Chris Goldsmith back. He's going to be a returning guest with us on the show. He wrote this. He's put out a bunch of information. Please go follow him and subscribe to his work. But also, please go subscribe and follow to Banner and Backbone, to Melissa Corrigan, to Shane Urich, to myself. Help get us out there, get this message. And remember, the book club is something you can do. We're doing it virtually because we want to connect everyone. We want to connect all of ourselves to this. And we want to get the word out so that people know. But we also want you guys to all know that you have the power to do it too. Like, go to your local library. Your biggest supporter of anti-fascism is your librarian. They support and care for knowledge. That is anti-fascist by definition. They care for knowledge based solely on the fact that it's knowledge. And so go support them. Go support your libraries. Melissa, anything from you to close out the show? I'll hand it over.
I'm going to try to end with a call to action every single week. This week, I'm going to hit on my old favorite, 5calls.org. It gives you the number to your local representative, congressman, senator, and it even provides scripts for a variety of topics in case you get tongue-tied when they answer the phone. 5calls.org.
And Shane, how about you, brother?
I will say, one, I want to remind us again that we talked about this earlier, that the GI Rights Hotline, and maybe Nick can throw that in the chats just so you guys can copy paste it if you need to. But after that, make sure you go make a note on your Substack, on your Instagram, Reels, feeds, whatever the hell you're on, and get the message out there because we were talking about this meeting. It's really important that those guys, the rank and file, those enlisted, know that they have rights and they have somewhere to go when this unlawful order comes inevitably. So that's something you can do. Even if you're not in the military, you can maybe your voice can put that number in front of someone who can get it to a young guy, 18, 19, 20 years old, who doesn't know shit about shit because they want it that way, that he has something to call if he has a question, if she has a question, if they have a question, you know, that's important. And lastly, that's my call to action for you. And then lastly, the Firebrand report is going to be on in just about 2 hours. If you guys want to catch on, I do 3 topics every day, Monday through Friday. And we'll go over 3 things in the news and I'll give you my take on it. So I hope to see you there. We can keep talking about these things that are problematic. I'm sure one of the things we will cover a little bit more today will be, but
Oh, we lost you, Shane.
because when I look at the news,
You're back.
I don't always look what everyone else does. Okay.
We
Am I
lost
back?
you for a second there. Yeah, you're back with us.
Anyway, 2 hours, Firebrand report. Make that post. Do it for America, for democracy. I love you guys, and I will see you all next time.
All right. Thanks, y'all. Thanks, Melissa. Thanks, Shane. See y'all next time. Next week, same time, 12:30 Eastern, for another episode of Banner and Backbone's Anti-Fascist Book Club. Have a great day, y'all. Hello, hello, hello. Good morning, everyone. It is Banner and Backbones Anti-Fascist Book Club, and I am Nick Perro. I'm joined by three of my really good friends and close colleagues here at Banner and Backbone: Melissa Corrigan, Shane Urick, and Ellie Leonard. And our special guest today, Stephanie Wilson from Freedom Over Fascism. She is a historian, a friend, a doctor in history. That's her
I was
doctorate
going to
in
say not the
history.
useful kind of doctor.
Not the useful kind of doctor, but actually, right now, maybe the
say that.
most useful kind of
Don't
doctor.
say that at all. I disagree.
I think historians right now are probably some of the most useful people in
Yes.
our society because they teach us what is good and possibly really, really bad, and what to look out for and how we can work on history. So, good morning, everyone. Welcome. We
Good
are
afternoon.
finished. Good afternoon. We are finishing our discussion on what is fascism today in the final sections of grievance and the conclusion. And before we get into any of the readings, I'd love for everyone to round robin from Melissa down, if we can, on our screen here. Introduce yourselves, and we'll end with our wonderful guest, Stephanie, and get right into it.
All
Melissa?
right. Hi, I'm Melissa Corrigan with Counter Story Media.
Shane?
Hello, I am Shane Urick. I'm with the Firebrand Project.
I
Ellie?
am Ellie Leonard, and on here it says I am a writer. So I am a writer, and I am on Substack under the Panicked Unpaid Writer.
And finally, our wonderful guest, Stephanie.
I'm Stephanie with Freedom Over Fascism, and I'm a historian. And I keep forgetting to say that I also have worked in strategic communications for quarter century. So got that too. That makes me feel really old. That's why I don't usually say it.
Don't worry about it.
It's, we don't worry about it. And I'm Nick Perro, host, friend, and host of the Sick of This Shit with Nick, and co-founder here at Banner and Backbone. So welcome, everyone. Let's get back into it. I'm going to jump into our next page, which is going to show what we're reading, and I will look at that, everybody. Fancy, fancy little pictures for y'all. I'm going to make sure to also put up into, or Shane, could you put into all the chats this morning the link to, I'll drop it in for our chat here.
I have it pulled up right now, so let me.
And we're going to drop the link for our reading today, which is What is Fascism? We've been reading this here for the last 3 weeks because there is a buttload to talk about.
Yes, indeed.
And oh no, it doesn't look like Ellie is showcase. Her channel is on. That's not
That's
cool.
okay. You know what? We'll figure it out. I'm not worried.
I think it's because I didn't turn your channel on.
See, I would never.
We'll see here. We'll see here in a second.
Nick.
I know. Oh, sending data. Sending data. Ellie will
I don't know what you're speaking another language. I don't know what any of this means, but
we're just gonna, there we go. And now it says streaming, which means here in a second, Ellie, if you were to go to your homepage, you would see yourself streaming. I got the notice too, is Ellie is live on Substack now too. And so the problem is Restream does not aggregate or pull together the chats from Substack yet, which is a huge pain in the ass. So Restream, get on that. Like, come on, y'all. Like, Substack, Restream, do something better. We know you can be better than this.
Be better, Restream. Come
be
on.
better for us.
I actually think it should all be in Substack, and we shouldn't have to do the Restream.
Right, I agree. Substack should do better.
Substack, do better. So that we can stream easier and stream, just restream from Substack instead of restream into Substack. Like, y'all got the power.
They do.
But what are we talking about today is what is fascism? And can it happen here? Before we get into it, I guess too far is Melissa. You give a really good overview of what the book club is and isn't. Can you give us just a quick recap, and then we'll jump in after that right into our section on grievance.
Absolutely. So, the first thing that we always tell everyone, because it is an anti fascist book club, we are in no way associated with the nonsensical, non organized entity that is Antifa. So, this is not an Antifa meeting. So, if you need to leave now, you can do that. Stop reporting us to the FBI. We're just a book
Yeah,
club.
CIA guy who listens in on my phone. Don't worry about it. You already
Right.
know everything. We're transparent here.
So
That's
what we
right.
do is we read over pertinent literature and we have discussions about it for the purpose of educating and empowering you to take that knowledge and go out and fight Nazis.
That's right.
Like the Nazis.
Fight
Shane,
them Nazis.
Shane, I think you got some. Oh no, that was me. Sorry, Shane. I think you had something you wanted to say though before I jumped in there. Sounded like you were going somewhere.
No, I mean, I think that, like, Melissa said, just to clarify, Antifa does not exist. We just like to read books that remind us of the most depraved form of governance that we've seen in history, one of them. So, yeah, Antifa, we don't know them. Never heard of them. So, yeah, we just like to read about shit that could quite possibly happen and is happening right now.
I hear Antifa likes to give interviews on Fox News, but
Wow.
did you see that with the face mask on? That was an
Wow.
Antifa member giving an ex Antifa member gave an interview on Fox News. So,
Did they like modulate his voice? I was an Antifa.
I don't know. It basically just looked like an ICE agent. It was the standardized guy in the face mask of either a January 6th event and or now what is ICE agencies. So yeah, I don't know.
I mean they
Wow.
pretty much identify as the same thing, don't they?
Yeah.
As J6ers. I was listening in. One of the reasons that they hide their faces too is possibly because they're hiring prior felons who and I was listening in, I think it was Maya May on Lincoln Square. It was just, they're paying these people blood money to, it's all J6ers and felon and like prior felons. And the contract is you do everything we tell you to do. You get this car, you get this $100,000 plus bonus, you get your sentence commuted basically, but you have to do everything we tell you to do to the letter. And they're doing it. And that's why they're covering their faces.
For the amount of people that they have, why we have a government shutdown when you have, what is it, $159 billion to give to ICE? But also, like,
well, that's the point.
With the amount of people that they have in ICE, they have no control over people leaving and running their mouth. They just don't have control over that. Like with the chance of nobody ever coming forward and talking about the training and the things they were asked to do and the requirements and the non-requirements is so slim. And it's just kind of a waiting game for when that's going to happen.
Exactly.
Someone's going to come forward and just start running their mouth and getting a book deal and being obnoxious and, and then more people will. So it's just kind of like we have to wait it out.
Right. I always tell people when they go off on conspiracy theories with anything involving the military, which conspiracy theories are true or not because people talk. And the entire military ain't keeping nobody's secrets.
No.
So, and I think it's important that we also mention, because of the content that we're going to be reading today, this was written by Task Force Butler, Chris Goldsmith with Task Force Butler over 2 years ago. So I think that's important to, like, he didn't just write this content based on current events. This was written over 2 years ago.
Yeah. That's a great point to make. Is this is not new writing. This is just writing that fits in perfectly because Chris Goldsmith and the Task Force Butler team knew what they were writing and knew what they were talking about. And they studied history and they studied current events and current trends. And they saw the direction it was going. And they said, here's what will happen. Here's what it would look like if somebody did this from a fascist, just a generic fascist doing this. This is how they would rise. And that's exactly what happened. And so I think today, where we're going to go to right now, which is our grievance section, which is sort of why I was bringing up the piece about the ICE members being prior felons, which, guys, I have nothing wrong with felons and prior felons and people who are coming back into society and learning and becoming productive members of society. But we're not doing that for these folks. We're turning them into worse people. Like, we're not helping and constructing anything forward, and we're creating a structure of grievance, and have created a structure of grievance in this country. And I wanted to get Stephanie, your thoughts on all of this while we're looking at it and seeing what the writing has to say, and then all of our thoughts build on, or if we disagree in areas, because I think we're living through a moment of shared grievance. And Stephanie, I'd love to hand it over and get your thoughts on that.
I just want to add one thing really quick. I'm sorry, sorry to cut you off, but I want to add to Nick's thought that I thought, just to what you're saying about them, pulling felons and all this stuff. They also dissolved like the federal police database where they kept track of all the different officers who had committed crimes and stuff like that very early on. It was one of the first things I saw they did. I was like, dude, that's terrible. But I think that also contributes to these ICE agents as well. They're able to get these guys who were, less than moral, police officers who committed, crimes and or abused their power into ICE as well. So I just wanted to add that really quick. And then, yes, Stephanie, please go ahead. Thank you.
As Nick said, grievance and shared grievance is kind of how you pull people together. And in the United States, luckily, there's a lot of history here where the white, as were majority, maybe not anymore, had white supremacy used people of color, Jews, Muslims, anybody not white and Christian as others. And now they're essentially LGBTQ plus people, they're essentially consolidating that group so that everyone has someone to choose from. And the idea of grievance comes with people who thought they were on top of the pile, and then other people sort of come up a little bit closer to them, and so they think that they're being oppressed because supremacy is no longer really theirs. So then obviously if they're not supreme, they must be oppressed. So we have a fantastic breeding ground for something like this, with all of our baked in racism and homophobia and xenophobia and anti-Semitism and Islamophobia, and I could go on and on and on, but it's all here ready to be harnessed. And that's what the regime is doing right now. And frankly, what the Republicans have been doing for a really long time. Unfortunately, we have a fairly closely divided country, and only half of us want a nice multicultural democracy, and the other ones want white Christian supremacy. So they use that to the supremacists use that to remind themselves what they are owed, because they're no longer superior. So they're owed superiority and supremacy. And the people who are taking that away are the people that they need to be against. But also from the top, they want a group of people fighting against each other, so then they can also be more corrupt and make more money. As all of this is going on, you'll notice that the billionaires are making more and more and more and more and more money, while those of us out here in the real world are facing higher prices and a lot of unemployment and stuff like that. So I think there's a multiplicity of ways that this all comes together into this moment.
Ellie, Shane, or
yeah.
Melissa, either any of you want to jump in?
I want to piggyback off what you said, a couple things. Because one, you were talking about creating, there's the billionaires enriching themselves, right? And you have the centimillionaires as well, right? There's 10,800 centimillionaires in America. Okay, so these are the people that are $100+ million. They're equally as powerful. I mean, they are not equally per se, but there's a lot more of them, and they're all trying to get into the billionaire club. So what I think is and there's another thing that is the number of billionaires has gone up significantly, actually, like a notable percentage since 2024. And the same with the centimillionaires. Like, it's actually crazy, like how I'm like, dude, what? There's like, I have an article that I wrote about it, and I'll give it to Nick so he can put it in the show notes so you guys can reference it. It's about the oligarchy. But just the actual stats are in there. But I think by creating these economic conditions, right, where people are suffering, the goal is to be able to scapegoat marginalized groups for these issues so that they can turn people against each other, right? So that they continue to push this narrative of other people being, the problem. And that allows for divisiveness, which allows for them to further exert control. And that is part of creating the grievance, is creating conditions where you can create an enemy, the enemy within, right? Like, it's no mistake that the term is used again, and it's historically a significant term. It's something that is intrinsically linked to fascism, this idea of an enemy within.
Well, it needs to be there if fascism is going to exist.
Correct.
As a counter force.
Mm-hmm.
I was just going to say, like, when we think about just the separation of finances, how the top is just going higher and higher and higher. Meanwhile, we're going lower and lower, and there's just this giant wage gap. And yet people who support the billionaires and millionaires with their votes think that they're very close. They think that they're very close to that top, and that they could get there as well. And that's when you start to see people kind of in the Stockholm syndrome idea, where they're voting for things that hurt themselves because they don't realize that they are nowhere near and will never be near the top, and those people will never deign to walk down the same street with them. And you see it, an example that I see just where we live, we have a very heavy immigrant community. It's vastly diverse, a lot of South and Central American countries, but a lot of like Middle Eastern countries. And like, we have a couple friends from Egypt, and we have friends from the Middle East and Eastern Europe. You see a lot of homes where they have 3 and 4 generations living under one roof, great grandparents, grandparents, and yet you still hear them saying things about the bad immigrants, right? Like we support Trump because there are bad and violent immigrants, and it's so confusing to me because I'm looking at their great grandmother who walks to the bus stop every morning and doesn't speak English, and is either not a citizen or is a very recent citizen. and how you can think that the majority of people coming to this country are bad when this is your entire family. And it's that hierarchy from within that teaches people to say, although I'm looking at you and although on some level I know we're the same, I'm being told that we're not the same. And so now, because we're not the same, you are now bad and I'm going to fight against you, even though we're on the same footing.
Yeah, I totally agree there. I mean, I live in Arkansas where it's fairly less diverse in a lot of ways, though the area that I'm in Arkansas is more diverse than most because we have Walmart and a bunch of larger corporations in this area um, who appeal to a slightly more diverse audience, or I mean, slightly more diverse background, but it is fairly monocultural in general. For us, it's white or India. Like you're from India, you're a white person, or maybe you're from El Salvador. And that's it. Like there's three really big communities overall. And it's one of the things I've noticed is the way that they structure grievance is also very caste system oriented. It is very modeled off of the caste system. Um, and the idea of excellence over others. And that caste system isn't unique to India. I mean, that's the patriarchal system in the Christo-fascist playbook is a caste system. So I'm not ragging on India specifically, but they have a very strict caste system that a lot of them are very, very still into internally as families or as just overall communal groups. It's like that machismo thing for some of the Hispanic communities. For Americans, it's just white Americans. It's sort of just built into our culture of machismo, or like, I guess, overly aggressive white males who have to compete for everything and everything's a competition all the fucking time and you have to be a 10 or 100xer, and that creates grievance too. Like I was in a work environment where I had grievances against people in my job because they kept stealing my ideas or stealing my work and putting their name to it. And I didn't have a shared grievance with other people. The shared grievance was against me because it was as though I wasn't doing anything. So it became a grievance against me, which made it a really hostile work environment. And the person who led that charge was removed from the company in a happily let go before I was, which was a victory for me to see, was that this individual, I'll say he, and that's it, did something to somebody else, and that other person just happened to be louder than I was, and in a position where they were willing to lose their own job to do it, and I couldn't. But it's the fear of other, and it was like it was a grievance structure of, why aren't you working hard enough for this? Or why aren't you putting out more for this? We expect more from you. You should be doing more all the time. You should be doing this. Well, it's just a competition against each other, and it's awful. Like,
Well,
I
it's
have
part of this,
fear because it's not a competition with each other.
right, Melissa?
Something that I have found is so curious to me, and I think we're going to look back and see that the right wing media propaganda system has been one of the most profoundly successful propaganda campaigns in perhaps all of history. Because, and I'm about to use some words, and I'm not disparaging anyone by any means, but you have people living in trailers, working minimum wage jobs, on food stamps themselves, on Medicaid themselves, absolutely calling for the destruction of those programs, lest someone that they deem as the other get those programs. So they are willing knowingly to lose those programs themselves just so that someone else will also these people that they deem as the other, whether it's immigrants or a gay couple or or anything, if it's an other, they are willing to sacrifice their own family's financial stability and even health care just as long as we stop other people from getting that. And that is like watching that unfold has been one of the most profoundly curious and really astonishing phenomenon that I think I've ever seen in my life.
I just wanted to say, oh, go ahead, Stephanie.
So though I know this isn't the way, so one could think that they know that they're doing this, right? That they know that they're trying to keep, that they know that their own benefits are tied to what they're trying to keep other people from getting. But I think they don't really make that connection between this is how I'm getting by, and I don't, it's very zero-sum thinking, right? Either I get it or you get it. And not even knowing that some of the people that they're afraid of getting, say, whatever, undocumented immigrants on Medicaid, it's illegal. It doesn't happen, right? So, but they've been so inculcated with this hate and misinformation and disinformation that they just believe what, I mean, Mike Johnson went out there and said something that was 100% backwards, wrong, upside down, as if the Democrats held all the power and were turning off the government so that those illegals could get all of your stuff. And
yeah, JD Vance went on TV. Sorry, JD Vance went on TV too. Sorry to cut in there, Stephanie.
I have something to add to that as well, because you were talking about Mike Johnson. I thought there was an interesting. I saw the tactic he used during an interview, where they go, well, they challenged him, and he says, well, that's just completely wrong. That's not what happened. This is what happened, and that's the truth. And what the media consistently fails to do is to push back on their closing, because if they, instead of letting him close the argument with that's the truth, if they had pushed back again, it's that they let the fascists, they let them close the loop. And that's a strategy. That's a very important strategy. It's that the last word, as long as they have the last word, the two most important things when you make a statement, you make a claim, is the first thing you say and the last thing you say. You notice in his claim, the first thing he said is, that's a lie. And the last thing he said is, I just told you the truth. That's not a mistake. And the media consistently fails on that front, where they allow them to use this closed loop tactic, which is what allows them to keep these people in a loop of disinformation, because all they remember is, oh, they're lying and Mike Johnson's telling me the truth. And Nick said something too I wanted to call back to, is that the loudest people, you were talking about, they were the loudest. Fascists are always the loudest. Always. It's important, because the louder you are, the more you can control the narrative. It's the Democrats' biggest failing. I was talking about this with Rick Herbst the other day, is that the Democrats do not scream loud enough. Like we were talking, it's like, if the Democrats did what the fascists are doing, and instead of like just ad hominem, like, oh, well, the Republicans to say we did this, well, how about they release the Epstein files? Like all they should do is just ad hominem Epstein files, ad hominem Epstein files. Don't defend yourself. It's pointless. They're just going to lie to you. Instead, attack them.
Exactly.
Attack them.
And one of the things about defending yourselves, as soon as you start using the same words that they do, even if you have they don't blah blah blah, or they're not blah blah blah, you're reinforcing their message. I don't think enough Democrats really understand that they need to start an entirely new conversation. And as you were saying, Shane, like this shutdown, like why? Yes, I understand why they're like talking about Medicare, but it would have been so much more effective had they been like, no, we're not funding fascism. Where are the Epstein files? No, where are the Epstein files? No, we won't fund that. Where are the Epstein files? You know, and
it's so easy. Like, I
It's
don't
so
understand.
easy.
How is it the five of us can sit here and figure this out in 5 minutes? To also, fascists use deeply populist appeals, like we've been talking about, the foreigner, the prejudice towards the foreign influence. Yet we have a foreign influence we could easily spread a non-fascist populist agenda on. Is an international group of people are behind the Epstein files and have funded the Epstein files and pedophilia, child sex trafficking, and it is directly linked to the president of the United States and the mentor of the vice president of the United States and multiple advisors within the presidency and the executive branch. The executive branch is a bunch of pedophiles or protectors of pedophiles funded by an international group. We need the Epstein files so that we know who funded these organizations so we can stop it. Or we just need to pay Ellie Leonard a lot more so that she can be full-time doing this and
yeah, no
find it
kidding.
all with Zev Shalev. Like, I'm serious. I want to pay
tied
Ellie
to
and
that
Zev.
funding, like why, or tied to the vote. Why has no mainstream media asked Mike Johnson to his face why he will not swear in a duly elected representative of the people, and she would be that swing vote to force it? Why has no mainstream media asked why a duly elected representative of the people is not being sworn in on time?
It's the same reason they didn't ask why McConnell wouldn't put back in Obama days where Obama nominated Garland to be on the Supreme Court and McConnell wouldn't hold those hearings for a year.
Funny how the only black president we've ever had couldn't get a Supreme Court nominee over a year before his last in his presidency, and Donald Trump got one in the last fucking month.
Right.
Like, just rammed through Amy Coney Barrett in the last month. That is coordinated tactics. That was coordinated suppression. And now I think we're at the part, because I scrolled down a little bit in our text, is I think we're at the part where the strong man, or I guess fat man, as the military, as the generals and the admirals and flag officers referred to them, was the little boy and the fat man are projecting power to intimidate the masses through an omnipresent ICE Gestapo that is now using the U.S. Armed Forces for training exercises for Black Hawk pilots to fly in and drop off ICE forces, because that's what that was. That was that was military training for Black Hawk pilots to fly in, do a city operation, repel ICE agents in, and leave. If you don't think that was a military operation, you have never seen war before. And you don't know what wartime operations look like. That is a wartime operation. I've been to war. I've seen that. I know that. I know those stories because I've heard them from people who lived them in the military while I was in. Melissa can tell you stories like that. She knows how these things work. Like, this is military training. And not just
that, I feel like it's a reiteration. If people are paying attention, it is a reiteration of us versus them. In that low income apartment building, there were white people and immigrants, Hispanic people that are legal residents. I mean, there was a black people, there was a mix, and the only unifying feature of that group of people is that they were poor. And not only did they feel the need to go in and snatch those people, including their children, out of their beds, they destroyed their property. They destroyed their homes. They destroyed their property. It was such a a signal to me that, like, if you are poor in this country, you are less than nothing. We will treat you however the fuck we want to treat you, and you're just going to have to take it. And so the sooner the American people realize that it's not so much us versus them in terms of social issues, LGBT, immigrant, but if you are below a certain socioeconomic level, you're less than nothing to them. And they are going to prove that. They are proving that, and they're going to continue to prove that.
I
I
think
wanted to.
ICE.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay, I'll be quick. I think that we're talking about power projection, right? An important thing to note here, like Nick said, like these are wartime operations. ICE is not a law enforcement agency. It is a paramilitary group that is under the direct influence of the executive branch, by proxy, the oligarchy through Stephen Miller. And we have, this is like, it's literally like they made the federal government BlackRock. They took BlackRock, and I guarantee you, like BlackRock and these groups, they're providing ICE agents as well. This is the
Garda
oligarchy's
World out of Montreal.
Yep. This is a paramilitary group that is funded by our federal government, that is outside the scope of any of our checks and balances, and they have total autonomy, and now they are being given access to our military resources. But they have no accountability to any of the normal channels of command that you normally would see through the military and the oversight. But they are armed the same way, they are being trained the same way, and they are being used as a projection of power. And that's to intimidate the masses, like right out of our reading, right? Like that is the function of ICE. They are not law enforcement, they are paramilitary, and that is an exceptionally important distinction that need to be made. The Gestapo were not the police. They were a paramilitary group that was created and directly under the influence of Adolf Hitler and the Nazi party. And that's what ICE is, right? It's the same playbook.
Yeah, and they use the same playbook because it works.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's not just Nazi Germany. It's Hungary. It's Italy. It's Argentina. Like all of these fascist places use the same playbook because it's proven and it works.
I was just going to jump in and talk about kind of like that idea of why these people are voting for and supporting things that harm them, kind of along these like lines of ICE and Medicaid and various issues that we see. The difference when you deal with the Democratic side versus the Republican side is Democratic voters not only hold Republican lawmakers to account, right? We educate ourselves, we yell about stuff, we protest, we know what's going on, we call our senators, but we hold our own people to the same account, right? We're doing the same thing with our own representatives. We're calling them, we're telling them they're not doing enough. I think of like Chuck Schumer, like we're really frustrated with our own people and we're making a stink about it. When you look at someone like Mike Johnson, talking to a reporter, and the first thing he says and the last thing he says, you'll notice that he uses very simple language. And the reason he does that is he's appealing to his base. He's saying things in a way that they understand. I didn't lie. You lied. Goodbye. Whereas when you hear someone maybe on the left, they're speaking in a lot more educated language and they're talking about bills and they're talking about funding, you've just lost that same viewer. They're no longer listening. And so you have these people who when we talk about distraction, when we talk about Trump throwing distractions and he has something new every day and it's to distract you from the Epstein files, it's also to distract his own base from the decisions that they're making, because it's very childlike. Not to say that people are not educated, but there's this childlike mentality of only paying attention to the thing that's directly in front of you versus the thing that is a consequence or is happening 3 days from now or is a result of the thing you're doing right now, right? It's very childlike to not be able to perceive those things and only perceive the thing that's in front of you. So he is constantly giving them a nugget of something in front of them so that long term he can do these really horrible things to them, and they will continue to vote for him, they will continue to support him, they will buy his whatever merch he's hawking on his website. And even this week, when you look at when you looked at like the White House website, it was set up like a Fox News page. Like they had the red chyron across the top. They had like, you know what I mean? Like it was, you know what the appeal is and who it's going to. It's meant to be very simplified and to speak in the simple language and to provide these simple things that look beneficial so that they have no pushback. Their party is doing whatever they want at the top because their people aren't pushing back. Whereas we're over here pushing back on both parties, right? We're saying, we see what you're doing. We hear what you're saying. This is not good enough to our own people. And they don't have that. They don't have that pushback.
And to your point of that simplified language where you can make one point today and in 3 days you're going to make a different, absolutely opposite point, and yet they're going to accept it. At the bottom of this reading, it says if they cannot find one, they'll simply make one up, an enemy, which is often why their enemies can be weak and inferior and yet also powerful and threatening. So we saw this messaging out of them that transgender individuals are too weak to fight in our military, and then they turn around 3 days later and say that transgender individuals are nihilistic, angry, violent terrorists.
Right.
Like, which is it, guys? Which, can you pick a lane?
Right.
Well,
Or even the other one that's now just a little bit of news while we talk about it is we have constructed the enemy of Caribbean drug traffickers as a armed conflict. We are now officially under the declaration of the president, which he has the authority to do, is to declare armed conflicts because of the post 9/11 terror, global war on terrorism, which, we should have gotten rid of some of these laws while we had the chance, but we fucking didn't because Democrats, you guys are weak and feckless and didn't do anything to protect the American people when you had the opportunity to. And we just blew up a fourth boat this morning, reporting coming out from Dissent in Bloom, from a tweet by Secretary of Stupidity Pete Hegseth, who blew up a fourth boat, killing four more Venezuelans. We do not know if they are terrorists or not. They were deemed terrorists by our government. There is no proof or evidence of terrorism. So here's what I'm going to say. Secretary of Defense, or as he wants to call himself, Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, committed another war crime this morning by blowing up extrajudiciously a fourth Venezuelan boat. The White House and Secretary of War are lying to you that they are in an armed conflict.
Well, they are in an armed conflict. It's just going one way.
Yeah, but they're lying to you that we need to be at war is, I guess, the more...
No. I was being a little bit flippant.
But what it's going to lead to is they're going to lie to you saying we have to be at war because they made up an enemy of Venezuela and drug traffickers to allow them to bomb Venezuela and provide the executive, doesn't matter which executive, could be the next one, but to provide the executive wartime powers and authorizations so that they can do things like run over the case that Melissa is covering about flock security and turn that into one, it's now of national security. We have to collect this data. That's bullshit. That is fascism. That's bullshit. That's gaslighting us into thought police and control of movement, i.e. 1984.
Not just that, that was a local issue where two residents of my city are suing our city. Flock Safety tried to intervene and join this case, and the federal judge denied that, saying you're just the vendor that provides the cameras. The city is the ultimate one that bears the responsibility of how to use the cameras. So they denied that. And so this previous Saturday, the federal Department of Justice has entered the chat. They've entered a statement of interest, and now they've pushed it off the bench trial for 4 months. Why is the federal government getting involved in a case between a citizen and their city?
Also, why is it that the owner of Palantir, Peter Thiel, one of the co-founders of Palantir, is now trying to purchase Flock Security and roll it into his overall Palantir data collection and surveillance system? That's a really big deal, and that's them creating an enemy to be able to consolidate power and consolidate tools and monopolize, or on however they want to say it is, monopsimize, so that they control both the consumer monopoly and supplier monopolies, and that we have no way to say no. Well, they created an enemy in Venezuela, in Venezuelan migrants. They've been doing it like Venezuela. They are like dead on wanting that. Somebody in there said, and I think it's Stephen Miller, would be the key in all of this part, was like, Venezuela, let's focus on Venezuela and Venezuela only, and just fucking make a war with them. So they made up an enemy.
Yeah.
Totally. 70% of Americans are within range of a Flock camera right now. So 70% of us on our daily drive go past a Flock camera. Flock cameras, they're not just tagging, it's an ALPR, right? They're not just grabbing a picture of you. An ALPR automatically reads your license plate, makes a timestamp that goes to the cloud, and it builds a history, it builds a profile on you. That means that when you decide to, if you go to the grocery store on Tuesdays, they will know. They will know you go on Tuesdays. They will know when you pass that Flock camera. And guess what? If one day they decide, you know what, Shane, he's annoying. He talks too much. He says shit we don't like. Well, we know where he goes to, get his groceries. We know he'll be there on Wednesday. We don't need to track him down. I'll just send some ICE guys over there. And when he shows up, we'll grab him, because we already have a profile on his whereabouts, what he does, what his daily routine is, and they probably have access to your, EBTs, right? When you pay with your Apple Pay or your card, they have your phone. It's not like they just have a singular, they don't even have to try. Like, they have it all. Our data privacy rights are non-existent. And, Walter said this morning, I think it's so true, is, Roe v. Wade wasn't just about bodily autonomy. It was about data autonomy, because your data is part of you. You make your data. And by setting the precedent that women don't have control over their own body, you also don't have control over your own data. And it's a violation of our bodily autonomy and our autonomy as people by them consolidating this data. And it is absolutely an attack on every single person's constitutional rights and their right to privacy.
Well, the right to privacy wasn't anywhere except in Roe v. Wade. So by killing that, that's what they killed.
Yeah.
So someone in my chat wants to know a little bit more about the cameras.
So I've been investigating the cameras, and I've worked with an insider who I will not name for obvious reasons. And they've given me some really startling information. Part of what makes Flock Safety in particular, there's quite a few of these companies out there. Another company that's operating out of Memphis right now has gone so far as to place one of their cameras on the utility pole in the yard of a local protester, a prominent local protester, and they have that camera aimed at her front door. The utility pole is owned by the city. That's city property. That's fully within their rights to do that. So I've posted that on my notes, so you should go check that out. But part of what makes Flock Security such a disturbing program, and their link to Peter Thiel, is that he was an investor in an incubator that Flock Safety was a part of. An interesting, a whole part of that is that Peter Thiel was asked to leave that incubator, and that's a whole other conversation. But he loved Flock Safety and has kept his eyes in very close contact with them ever since. Flock Safety has developed a dashboard, and it's sort of they were the first company to develop this dashboard that didn't just stop at license plate readers. They have a dashboard provided to law enforcement, and especially federal law enforcement, where it will track everything for a person. It will tie in consumer data information. It will tie in even social media information. When you talk about building that electronic profile and connecting it to your license plate movement, that's where Flock Safety is the most dangerous company out there.
They're also doing these, and I was going to write this down, but I'll just say it instead. They're doing, if you look at obviously toll roads, but if you look at state crossing points, identify if there's a camera on there.
Right.
Because a lot of states now have state crossing cameras that are just. Oh, we lost Shane for a second.
Right, and Flock Safety has also begun dealing with corporations, so private businesses. Off the top of my head, Lowe's, Home Depot, FedEx trucks are carrying those cameras on the trucks. If they come on your property to deliver a package, or your neighbor's property, any license plate within the scope of that truck is capturing license plate information. Kaiser Permanente in California is using Flock cameras, so when you go for health care, they are tracking your license plate information.
Yeah.
Plus the little pictures they send you of them having delivered your their package is all adding to that data profile.
Right.
And so we got into this. It's good questions that got us here. We got into this part of the conversation because it is part of grievance, and they have a grievance against certain people, and they're going to collect all of our data and use that grievance to label us as insurrectionists, terrorists.
Yeah, it's part of that intimidation piece. Like, I know lots of people who are now very concerned about even participating with the actual the in-person book clubs that I've started in my area. In fact, we had to rename one of them the Pro-Democracy Book Club in order for people to feel comfortable coming to those book club meetings. And that's insane to me. It's insane.
Yeah. Yeah.
Guys, I gotta hop off, but I wanted to say thank you.
Absolutely. I'm going to give, if you have just 1 second, Ellie, I'm going to move us back to our previous screen. Can you give everyone just a quick rundown of where they can find you, how they can support you before you go?
Sorry, guys. I'm doing another
absolutely.
thing tonight. So if you guys want to find me, I am basically Red Pencil Script on all social media. Most of my writing is here on Substack, and so that would be under the Panicked Unpaid Writer or Ellie Leonard. You can find me there.
Thanks, Ellie.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate you inviting me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Hope you join us again.
Okay, we'll talk to you later.
All right. Thanks, Ellie. We'll talk to you later. All right. And so we are at the top or halfway through the hour and we're just about at 50 minutes are on our recording. We started just a little late, but we were getting some stuff, made sure everybody was all set up in the background. But this has been an incredible conversation overall. And I don't want to keep us too long because I want to make sure we respect Stephanie's time. And I've got some stuff I got to get done around the house today. But I think one of the things I want to do is make sure, Stephanie, you have some time to give some closing thoughts here on what you think about like what we talked about today and how you perceive all of this going on. It's really helpful to have your point of view as a historian, but also as someone who is actively supporting pro-democracy efforts and pro-constitutional efforts. And I think everybody who is doing that type of work needs to be shouted out in the best ways. and boost it as much as we can. So I'm glad we can give you this platform to be able to do that.
Well, I thank you for having me on. I'm glad to be able to participate. I think the bottom line that I want to emphasize, and probably everybody watching this knows, is that we're not in danger of being in a fascist country. We are already there. And for those people who wonder where the bottom is, take a look at what happened in World War II. It could go that far. So don't think that, keep your imagination lively. I sounded like an absolute loon today talking to a friend about how I don't want my kid to go to a different state to college, because when they invade and they set up checkpoints, I want them to be able to get home, right? I feel like I'm sounding like an absolute lunatic. But I don't, that's totally the trajectory we're on. And also I saw today that a third of Americans think that political violence is necessary sometimes, and that is on both parties. So we are barreling toward, between all the violence of the regime, all the stochastic terrorism of the regime, and the fear, we are accelerating toward whatever sort of end game is going to look like. One more thing. Let's just keep this positive on the end. By being here, guys, me being here, I was like obviously not in the best frame of mind this morning. That's what makes hope. It's actions. It's taking actions. It's paying attention. It's talking to people you know. It's becoming part of a community. So what you're doing by being here with us is building hope.
As I cover your face, put up Stephanie's QR code. I'm going to put everyone's up here in a second. I'm learning how to do all this hosting thing more and more on the fly as I go, and I want to make sure I get everyone included. I don't even know if Shane, somehow I don't have yours, even though I host with you all the time. Oh man, I don't know. I do. I have a little QR code for you. That's why. But please go follow Stephanie on wherever she's available. Freedom Over Fascism here on Substack. Stephanie G. Wilson is a friend of. We've got our first QR scan. That's amazing. Thank you to whoever did that.
Thank you.
I've never seen that before. That's a big deal.
Oh, have you not seen that pop up when it does that? Yeah, man.
That's cool.
It's cool, isn't it? And so let me rotate.
Oh, in my thing, it's probably the same person who's standing.
And then we're going to put our good friend Ellie Leonard up. And she dropped off with us here. But please go and subscribe to all of our great contributors today, our guest, Banner and Backbone itself, and everyone else. So please, Stephanie, thank you so much. Shane, can you give just a couple seconds here where people can find you? Then I'll hand it over to Melissa, and then I'll close this out real quick with a goodbye.
Totally. My name is obviously Shane, but you can find me over at the Firebrand Project, top of SEO. So if you can't find me through Substack, guess what? You can just type the Firebrand Project in, and you get right there. Pretty cool. I'm a polemic essayist. I hate the system. I write about it, and you can find me every day, 12:30, the Firebrand Report, where I talk about 3 topics in the news, and I give you a take on it and what I think it means for our future. And we're just trying to build a community of people who speak out. Everyone here is a firebrand. If you're part of Banner and Backbone, you're a firebrand. Firebrands they stand up for what they believe, and they speak out against tyranny, and that's what we do. And Stephanie's a firebrand, Nick's a firebrand, Melissa's a firebrand, It's a title that everyone earns the second they stand up for our democracy and for the rights that belong to each and every person, regardless of how they appear, choose to identify, where they're from. It's about being there for the moral rightness of humanity.
Appreciate it, Shane. Melissa, hand it over to you real quick.
Yes, I usually like to end with a call to action today. It's not self-serving, I promise. I would like for your call to action, I'd like for you to go check out my notes. I've had some insiders that are inside federal departments drop me some information, and I have shared that information. One of them is press guidance inside the Department of Defense, directly ordering the press corps to blame Democrats for the shutdown, which is absolutely unreal. So please go to Counterstory Media, to my notes specifically from this morning. I'm dropping these as I get information. I sort of look into it, fact check it a little bit, and then I share it with you. I want to always keep that conversation going and keep any information I have, I share it with you so that you can see what's going on inside these federal departments.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Melissa. Thank you, Shane. Thank you, Stephanie. I'm Nick Perro, host of the Sick of This show, and Sick of This Shit with Nick. I do political, social poetry, and commentary. And I host a morning show at 11 a.m. Eastern, Monday through Thursday. Stephanie is a repeat guest with me on on my Monday show, where we talk about chronic illness and practice. And I love her insights, also just being able to hang out with her and others with chronic illnesses. So please come check out my work personally too. I appreciate everyone who comes in. And then finally, please support the network itself, Banner and Backbone. We are growing rapidly. We are very close to hitting the 100 paid subscriber mark on Banner and Backbone itself. We're 9 away. We could use 9 paid subs today. If you can, become a paid sub with Banner and Backbone and help us get across the 100 paid subscriber line. And that will help the network grow. It'll boost all of our platforms. We're also going to be doing some really cool additions to Banner and Backbone. I'm going to start streaming some restream casting of longer shows, which is going to be a compilation. The first one is going to be a compilation of our first 4 episodes of the book club. And so look out here soon I'll probably drop it on Sunday to do maybe 2 repeats during the day. So look out for the first 4 episodes of the Banner and Backbone Anti-Fascist Book Club, where we cover What is Fascism by Task Force Butler and Can It Happen Here? And I think we figured the answer to that question is yes, unfortunately. So with a call to action for everybody, try and start your own anti-fascist book club. If you cannot start one or you don't know how, we'll drop links and everything you need in the show notes. Thank you all for joining. Please subscribe to all of the contributors today and do something actively for democracy today. This was your first step in actively participating in your democracy today. Now go take some lessons and help people be less full of grievance. Or if they want to stay grievance filled, shuffle their grievance towards something that is positive.
And the oligarchy.
Grievance against the oligarchy, the robber barons who
we
are
all need
us.
to be against the oligarchy.
Yeah. Yep. So with that, this has been Banner and Backbone. Melissa, you look like you got one last thing for us.
Oh no, I have to run. That's it.
Okay. Awesome.
Thank you guys so much for tuning in for another great book club.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it so much. This has been fantastic. We'll see y'all next week.